It was from the Cataclysm. I can illuminate the technological tree. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1 Helium Flash. Dear citizens of the Human Union Underground City number 1183, according to the latest observations, the sun will explode with a helium flash in 30 minutes. Human civilization has entered the final 30-minute countdown. We have failed. In the underground city 500 meters below the Earth's surface, a heavy female voice was played from the speakers everywhere. Everyone who heard the broadcast felt an unspeakable sense of suffocation deep in their hearts. Yongchang sat expressionlessly in front of a holographic projection. In the holographic image, a huge fireball burned quietly in the deep space of the universe. This is a picture of the sun at this moment. Yongchang took a deep breath, stretched out his right hand, and waved a gesture in the air. The scale of the holographic image suddenly shrank, showing the full picture of the solar system today. Unlike the previous solar system, the solar system at this time has lost two planets. Venus and Mercury have been swallowed by the sun, and the sun has also become a crimson behemoth. In astronomy, it has a special name. Red giant, Yongchang. Are we, no, humans, going to perish just like this? A slightly helpless female voice came from the side. Yongchang turned his head and looked around. A woman in a white coat sat on a chair, staring at the holographic projection in front of her with a dull look. Yongchang's eyes moved slightly. As the chief scientist of the Human Union Academy of Sciences, this woman named Yongchang is his partner and his right-hand man. Yes, humanity is finished. Yongchang sighed softly and continued, there are more than 20 minutes left. Do you want to go to the surface? Yongchang's eyes moved slightly, and she took her eyes back from the holographic projection in front of her, and slowly stood up from the chair. She reached out to untie her long black hair, facing Yongchang, and showed a brilliant smile. Of course, in the elevator of the underground city number 1183, Yongchang and Yongchang were wearing heavy protective clothing and looked at each other in silence. On the elevator screen, the number showing the current depth kept jumping. A hint of regret flashed in Yongchang's eyes. In 2045 AD, the sun, on which human beings depend for survival, was affected by unknown factors, ended its youth, and entered aging ahead of time. In just 5 years, the sun entered the red giant stage and swallowed two planets in the solar system one after another. Humans, who were forced into a desperate situation, eliminated various barriers and established the Human Federation, referred to as the Human Federation. And Yongchang, relying on his status as a top student since childhood, successfully won the title of Chief Scientist of the Human Federation Academy of Sciences. In his calculations, even if the sun enters a red giant stage ahead of time, it will still take hundreds of years for the helium flash to erupt. Because the surface is no longer suitable for survival. Under his call, the Human Federation built countless underground cities, and all human beings entered the underground cities for refuge, and began to build interstellar spacecraft at the same time. But obviously, he calculated wrong. In just 5 years, the sun has surpassed the life process of billions of years of other stars. The helium flash is about to erupt. As the planet currently closest to the sun, the Earth will be melted into a magma ball without any surprise. Human civilization has come to an end. Ding. Dear Chief Scientist, I wish you a complete success in your research mission on the surface. A crisp reminder sound awakened Yongchang from his contemplation. He looked at the elevator screen 518. This is the surface temperature outside. The elevator door slowly opened, and a heat wave came with distorted air. Looking at the huge red giant star above his head and the surface with surging heat waves, even with the existence of protective clothing, Yongchang still felt a sense of heat. There is 1 minute left, and the helium flash will erupt. Yongchang's slightly cold voice came from the radio. Yongchang did not speak, but raised his head and looked at the sun through the mask with filtering ability. As the only advanced civilization on Earth, he did not want to bow his head and die. Do you know how much effort I put in to become your assistant? Do you know why I did that? Perhaps Because it was the last moment, Su Yutang's voice was full of relief. Because I like you, LV. Yongchang's pupils shrank suddenly. The helium flash broke out. The extremely strong white light sprinkled from the red giant star to the earth. In just a moment, LV Yongchang lost consciousness. In front of him was a fluorescent green point. A white line slowly extended, drawing a tree diagram in the fluorescent green void background. LV Yongchang looked at everything in front of him in confusion. What is this? A faint flash lit up at the bottom of the tree diagram. Subconsciously, he cast his eyes to the bottom of the tree diagram. Nuclear energy control. Controlled nuclear fission. A line of highlighted white fonts appeared. The next moment, the white area began to extend upward. Nuclear energy control. Controlled nuclear fusion. As the line of originally dim words became brighter, countless words and symbols instantly overwhelmed LV Yongchang's consciousness. LV Yongchang. LV Yongchang. Professor Guan is calling you. LV Yongchang. While he was dazed, a familiar low voice came from his ear. The sight gradually came into focus. What came into view was a classroom. Looking at the old man on the podium, who was frowning at him. LV Yongchang's pupils shrank slightly. Professor Guan Hualiang, didn't he pass away 5 years ago? LV Yongchang. This is the first college physics class. If you don't like physics so much, why did you apply for the physics department? There was some anger in Guan Hualiang's voice. LV Yongchang looked confused, subconsciously stood up, turned his head, and looked around. Familiar scene. This is his college classroom, if I remember correctly. This is his first physics class in his sophomore year. He quickly took out his mobile phone from his pocket and turned on the screen. September 6th, 2030, reborn. In an instant, countless complex emotions emerged in LV Yongchang's mind. Confusion, sadness, loss and a little hope, mandated by heaven, longevity and prosperity. This is the origin of his name. Facts have proved that the name was not wrong. In his last life, he was at the top of the human race, but due to his mistakes, human civilization was completely destroyed. In this life, he wants to redeem everything, but how should he do it? LV Yongchang. Did you hear me, Professor? Guan Hualiang on the podium was furious. In all his years of teaching at Sandaokao University, he had never seen such a disrespectful student. LV Yongchang looked up at Professor Guan Hualiang on the podium and the blackboard behind him, his eyes slightly moving. Perhaps he needs a chance to make a splash. The next moment, the countless formulas and words brought by the fluorescent green tree diagram swirled back and forth in his mind like a storm. P.S. The plot of the first few chapters may be a bit toxic, and this is the first time the author has written a novel. As for the heroine, there is basically no role, so it can be said that there is no heroine. Updated at 12 o'clock every night. Chapter 2 On-site demonstration of controlled nuclear fusion. Lu Yongchang. What are you going to do? Seeing Lu Yongchang standing up and walking towards the podium, Professor Guan Hualiang's expression changed slightly, and he immediately yelled at him. This is a classroom, please think clearly, Guan. Hualiang's scolding fell into Lu Yongchang's ears, making him feel an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He hadn't heard this scolding for more than 10 years. A faint smile appeared on Lu Yongchang's face, and he nodded gently towards Guan Hualiang. Professor Guan, I'm sorry, I need to borrow the blackboard. Guan Hualiang was shocked and angry. After so many years of teaching, this is the first time a student has asked to borrow his blackboard in class. The next moment, he saw Lu Yongchang walking up to him and picking up a whiteboard pen from the podium. Guan Hualiang was so angry that he laughed. How can this be borrowed? He didn't even nod in agreement. This is clearly a robbery. Classmate Lu, I'm warning you for the last time now. Guan Hualiang took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in his heart, and said softly, you return to your seat now, and I can deal with your previous actions leniently. If Lu Yongchang straightened his back and looked at Guan Hualiang deeply. Guan Hualiang's pupils shrank slightly, and his words seemed to be stuck in his throat. He couldn't help but think of the time when he was a graduate student. At that time, in his eyes, his mentor also had this kind of uncompromising momentum. However, the person in front of him was just a sophomore. His mentor was one of the top scientists in Xia Kingdom at that time. At this moment, Not only Guan Hualiang, but also all the students in the audience, fell into a daze. Fuck, this kid Lu Yongchang, is he crazy? A thin boy wearing a pair of black-rimmed glasses stared at the scene on the podium dumbly, muttering to himself, does he want to be expelled? This boy's name is Wookie, and he is Lu Yongchang's roommate. He was the one who softly woke up Lu Yongchang just now. He never thought that Lu Yongchang, who was usually immersed in studying, would do such a shocking thing in the university physics class. Lu Yongchang naturally ignored the shock of Guan Hualiang and his classmates. He turned to face the blackboard, picked up the whiteboard pen in his hand, and put it down with determination. A clear line of calculations appeared on the blackboard. The elegant font made Professor Guan Hualiang's eyes light up slightly. This level of writing on the blackboard cannot be achieved without several years of experience, but soon he frowned tightly. This line of calculation should not be knowledge accessible to undergraduates. Professor Guan Hualiang's eyes flashed with curiosity. He stopped preparing to drive away Lu Yongchang, but instead crossed his arms and stood quietly aside to read what Lu Yongchang wrote. On the blackboard, as lines of calculations and simplified diagrams appeared. Professor Guan Hualiang's frown deepened. If he read it correctly, this is content related to controllable nuclear fusion. But how did Lu Yongchang know these things? However, seeing this knowledge that was beyond the undergraduate level, the anger in Guan Hualiang's eyes had dissipated and was replaced by a deep love for talent. This is a treasure of the future Xia Kingdom. Guan Hualiang looked at Lu Yongchang's tall and straight back, his eyes full of joy. Lu Yongchang's disrespectful behavior just now was completely forgotten by him. What a genius. There are some privileges after all, not to mention, he just apologized. At this time, the blackboard was filled with information about controllable nuclear fusion, including a simplified diagram of the nuclear fusion device. Guan Hualiang nodded with satisfaction. Xia Guo's current research on the controllable nuclear fusion project has almost reached this point. Just when he was about to interrupt Lu Yongchang's actions, an accident happened. I saw Lu Yongchang's whiteboard pen suddenly stopped. There's no room left. Lu Yongchang frowned slightly and turned his gaze to the projector screen aside. He moved around and wrote a line of calculations on the projector screen with a whiteboard pen. Whiteboard markers are not suitable for writing on projector screens, but at this time, Lu Yongchang obviously couldn't care about these minor problems. He has an extremely urgent need. He wanted to write the storm of words in his mind into the blank space in front of him as much as possible. Lu Yongchang started writing very quickly. Before Guan Hualiang could stop him, a large number of letters appeared on the snow-white curtain. Before he could feel heartbroken, Guan Hualiang was attracted by the content in front of him. This is Guan Hualiang's pupils shrank slightly. This is a completely new way of constructing materials. Guan Hualiang subconsciously searched for memories in his mind. But even after searching his entire mind, he didn't have the slightest impression of this material. What on earth is this? Guan Hualiang murmured to himself. The next moment, a reflection flashed across the corner of his eye. He looked along the reflection and saw several classmates holding cell phones to record the scene in front of them. Guan Hualiang's face darkened slightly. Although he didn't know what Lu Yongchang was writing now, his scientific research intuition told him that these things were all the most important essence. It must not be leaked easily. He yelled in a low voice, everyone, put down your mobile phones and stop filming. After thinking for a while, Guan Hualiang added again, you are not allowed to leave the classroom without permission. Half an hour later, Lu Yongchang slowly stopped what he was doing. What you wrote next is a synthesis method of a new type of material. Guan Hualiang's voice came from the side. Lu Yongchang turned his head, nodded and smiled calmly. That's right. He glanced at the stunned classmates in the audience, lowered his voice and said, Professor, this material can solve the problem of controllable nuclear fusion. Guan Hualiang's pupils shrank suddenly. The biggest problem that plagues controllable nuclear fusion is nothing more than the hundreds of millions of degrees of high temperature generated when the fusion reaction occurs. He turned his head again and looked solemnly at the projector screen filled with letters in front of him. What is the use of this material? There was a bit of vibrato in Guan Hualiang's voice. After all, he was a professor in the physics department and didn't know much about materials science. But controllable nuclear fusion. This is a problem that has troubled many scientists, even though he still had some doubts in his heart. When he saw the dense and detailed deduction steps, the doubts in his heart disappeared. Such rigorous deduction steps, such skillful application of formulas, he even suspected that the person standing in front of him was a hidden scientific figure. This material can perfectly carry the high temperature of controllable nuclear fusion. When paired with a stellarator, it can perfectly achieve controllable nuclear fusion. Yongchang's eyes flashed with a somewhat unclear light, and he whispered, "Professor, I need you to help me verify my deduction." Chapter 3 Technology Tree System. Faced with Yongchang's request, Guanhua Liang swallowed slightly. As the only expert audience, Guanhua Liang's shock reached its peak. Who would have thought that an undergraduate student could actually deduce all the details of controlled nuclear fusion technology on the spot? What do you want me to do, perhaps? Because of the shock, Professor Guanhua Liang's voice was a little hoarse. Yongchang said with a firm look in his eyes, "Professor, I apply for an audit of my deduction process. Sandao University, School of Materials." A hurried ring rang in an office. "Hello, Professor Guan, what? Are you serious? Wait for me, I'll be there soon." "Okay, I'll go," called Yongchang. This call completely disrupted the originally peaceful School of Materials at Sandao University. The same scene happened again in the nuclear physics laboratory of Sandao University. "Professor Guan, you are not kidding me, are you? A new material that can support nuclear fusion, and it was derived on the spot by a sophomore student. Am I dreaming, or are you still asleep?" Okay, I'll go to your place and take a look." More than 20 minutes later, Guanhua Liang and Yongchang sat quietly on the chairs in the classroom. The rest of the students left the classroom one after another, after deleting the videos and photos in their mobile phones. "Professor, those students." Yongchang looked at Professor Guanhua Liang in front of him with some concern. "Don't worry, someone will deal with it later." Guanhua Liang was silent for a moment, and then spoke again to confirm. "Yongchang, did you research these things yourself?" Although he witnessed Yongchang completing these deduction steps alone, but, to be honest, he still didn't believe that a sophomore undergraduate student could master such advanced knowledge. Although this is at Sandao University, the top university in China. But undergraduates are just undergraduates after all, and the knowledge they are exposed to is limited. Yongchang sat opposite Guanhua Liang, staring at Professor Guanhua Liang with deep eyes, and nodded firmly. "Professor, I researched all these by myself." He didn't lie. In his previous life, he made great contributions to the research task of controlled nuclear fusion. This resume added a lot of points to him when he was selected as the chief scientist. After all, only humans who have mastered controlled nuclear fusion have the capital to survive in the underground city. "I hope so." Guanhua Liang looked at Yongchang deeply. At this time, he had recovered from the initial shock and naturally had more doubts. However, everything will be revealed in the upcoming joint review of professors. Whether it is fraud or natural genius, it will be clear at that time. While thinking, Guanhua Liang closed his eyes and began to rest. "When you get older, your energy is limited." Seeing Guanhua Liang close his eyes to rest, Yongchang's eyes moved slightly, and he slowly closed his eyes. Deep in his mind, there was still a mystery. At the moment of the helium flash, he lost consciousness, but before he was reborn and woke up, what was the fluorescent green interface he saw? Yongchang, who had just closed his eyes, saw darkness in front of his eyes. The next moment, as his mind moved slightly, a fluorescent green light slowly appeared from the depths of his mind. In front of him, the strange tree diagram appeared again. This time, he finally had the opportunity to observe it carefully. The same as the tree diagram he saw last time, the highlighted white fonts at the bottom were controlled nuclear fission and controlled nuclear fusion technology. As for the next level, there was a line of somewhat dim handwriting. Nuclear energy control, Fusion reactor miniaturization technology. A trace of horror flashed in LV Yongchang's eyes. Fusion reactor miniaturization technology. This is exactly the technology he studied at the last moment of his previous life. It is no exaggeration to say that the fusion reactor miniaturization technology can bring human technology to another peak. But it's a pity point because of the tight time. He did not make any progress thinking of the experience of entering this space last time. LV Yongchang hurriedly focused his mind on this line of dim text point. No miracle point in his mind. No knowledge about the miniaturization of fusion reactors appeared. Point. Just as LV Yongchang was puzzled, a line of faint text appeared between the two technologies of controlled nuclear fission and fusion reactor miniaturization. The next moment, a somewhat dim white line connected them. Precondition. Analysis of the sonoluminescence phenomenon. Thinking of the scene in which controlled nuclear fusion technology appeared in his mind, he had some guesses about the system in his mind. This technology tree system can only guide him in the correct research direction, and cannot give knowledge out of thin air. However, this is enough. The most taboo in scientific research is to go in the wrong direction, with the right direction. LV Yongchang believes that with his own ability, he can solve those so-called scientific research problems anyway. The next second, he looked up at the technology tree. Electric propulsion system, quantum communication technology. At the top of the technology tree, there is a line of highlighted text. Level 1 civilization. LV Yongchang swallowed his saliva slightly. His eyes filled with disbelief. This is only a first level civilization? What should a second level civilization master? As this thought came to him, a line of increasingly dim words appeared at the top of the technology tree. Energy weapons are initially mastered. The moment he saw this line of words, LV Yongchang's pupils shrank suddenly. It turned out to be energy weapons. Then, what about third level civilization? A trace of greed flashed in his eyes as a scientist. Future technology, even if it is just a name, has a fatal attraction to him. The system did not respond. LV Yongchang showed some regret in his eyes. Just as LV Yongchang was immersed in the process of exploring the system, a gentle knock on the door came from outside the classroom. Knock, knock, knock. LV Yongchang and Guan Hualiang opened their eyes at the same time and cast their eyes towards the direction of the classroom door. Come in. The door is not locked, Guan Hualiang said in a deep voice. The next moment, the classroom door slowly opened. Several professors with graying temples walked into the classroom with solemn expressions. The first time the old man in the lead entered the classroom, he set his eyes on the blackboard behind the podium. After a quick glance at the blackboard and the projector screen, a trace of surprise flashed in the old man's eyes. Then, he turned his head to look at LV Yongchang. After seeing LV Yongchang looking at him without any fear, the old man's surprise became more intense. Professor Guan, is this the genius student you mentioned? Guan Hualiang nodded gently. Dinshan, let me introduce him. This guy is a sophomore student in the Department of Physics. His name is LV Yongchang. Then, he turned his head to LV Yongchang and said, this is the Dean of the School of Materials of Sandaokao University, Xiam Zixun. Ask him whether your new material is reliable or not. Chapter 4. Stealing People. Dinshan, hello, Lu. Yongchang quickly stood up and greeted the old man. Xian Zixuan nodded with a smile and then turned his eyes to the blackboard behind the podium. Although the first half was only the most basic knowledge of controllable nuclear fusion, the use of various diagrams and formulas still made Xian Zixuan's eyes light up. With such standard and appropriate formula deduction, if you are self-taught, this is simply a perfect scientific research. Seedling, especially when he saw the new material deduction steps, his eyes completely lit up. Regardless of whether the result is correct or not, at least the deduction process is clean, refreshing, and full of unique beauty. Don't talk anymore. This student wants it. Xiam Zixuan's eyes moved slightly, and he turned to look at Lu Yongchang standing aside with a smile. Lu Yongchang, right, seeing Lu Yongchang nodding, Xiam Zixuan continued, are you interested in coming to study at our materials college? I will directly recommend you a place as a graduate student. Lu Yongchang was stunned. This a move to love talents. Hey, old man Xian, you can't do this as a human being. Guan Hualiang became anxious in an instant. It's so good, why is it poaching? Xian Zixuan obviously didn't take Guan Hualiang's words seriously and continued to say with a smile, Boss Lu, I think you are very knowledgeable about materials science. Are you self-taught, Lu? Yongchang subconsciously glanced at Guan Hualiang beside him, nodded slightly and said, yes, I taught myself everything. Xian Zixuan's eyebrows suddenly raised. Good guy. This is meeting a real genius. He quickly suppressed the excitement in his heart and said in a calm tone, it's pretty good that you can reach this level through self-study. However, there are still some flaws. Let's do this. If you come to our School of Material Science to study, I will guarantee you a place as an outstanding young student. Lu Yongchang looked at the old man in front of him angrily, and funny point, if he hadn't been reborn, he would have been deceived. Outstanding youth. In his last life, he was the chief scientist of the People's Federation, so the attraction of this young outstanding person to him is basically zero. As for the flaws, are you kidding? This is the best material that has been proven through countless practices. But, as a sophomore undergraduate, Lu Yongchang naturally couldn't say. That point there was a hint of confusion in his eyes. Dinshan, how about, you should take a look at the molecular formula of this material first. Xian Zixuan was slightly startled. This was somewhat beyond his expectation. According to his usual experience, these young people will already be dizzy if he continues his carrot and stick operation. Why is this kid still thinking about this conclusion? Old Xian, this is someone from my physics department. Guan Hualiang's face turned slightly red, and he reiterated point. Xian Zixuan glanced at Guan Hualiang angrily. Okay, those in the Department of Physics and Materials are all students from Sandaokao University, Professor. Guan, as the Dean of the School of Material Science, I should promise some benefits to talents, don't you think so, Guan? Hualiang's face froze instantly. This is fatal. Xian Zixuan is the dean, but Guan Hualiang is not. Bang. Just when the atmosphere started to become awkward, the door to the classroom was pushed open. Old Xian, what you said just now, are you trying to deceive everyone in my physics department? A loud voice came from the classroom door. This is the voice of Jiang Yangxing, Dean of the School of Nuclear Physics. Guan Hualiang's eyes showed a bit of joy. On the other hand, Xian Zixuan's face showed a bit of embarrassment and annoyance. Jiang Yangxing strode into the classroom and immediately looked at the blackboard. The moment he saw the writing on the blackboard, his eyes suddenly lit up. No wonder this old guy Xian Zixuan wants to rob people. If he couldn't retain such a genius, he would probably be scolded in the spine by the professors in the department. Classmate Lu Yongchang, right? I'm Jiang Yangxing, the Dean of the School of Nuclear Physics. I don't care what Xian Zixuan tells you. Whatever his materials department can give you, my physics department can give you. Lu Yongchang blinked his eyes a few times, with deep helplessness and doubt in his eyes. Why did the scene become like this? What about the joint review by professors that we agreed on? Why did it become a people-grabbing convention? At the last moment, Professor Guan Hualiang was the first to come to his senses, cough slightly and bring the topic back. Ahem. Dean Xian, Dean Jiang, let's take a look at this conclusion first. A faint smile appeared on Jiang Yangxing's lips, and he nodded slowly. Okay, since Professor Guan believes in student Lu so much, let's see if there are any loopholes in your deduction process. Hearing this, Lu Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. It can be considered to be on the right track. Dozens of professors sat down one after another, took out pens and paper, and began to check what Lu Yongchang wrote on the blackboard. Lu Yongchang, on the other hand, sat quietly on a chair nearby, waiting for these professors' questions. Student Lu, can you show me how to derive the formula in the third line on the left? A younger professor spoke first. Lu Yongchang nodded, stood up, went to the left half of the blackboard, and found the third row of calculations. It's very simple. We just need to make a few simple transformations. As he spoke, LV Yongchang picked up the paper and pen beside him, and with 2 swipes, the specific evolution of the formula appeared on it. The doubts in the young professor's eyes disappeared instantly. He stood up and bowed gently to LV Yongchang. Thank you, Jiang. Yongchang saw this scene and raised his eyebrows slightly. I didn't notice it just now, but now I realize that Yongchang's math skills are probably better than most people present. This further strengthened his determination to keep Yongchang in the physics department. Physics and mathematics have always been inseparable, especially in modern physics. Without a little math skills, I'm afraid you can't even understand the questions. As time goes by, the professors who ask questions are getting older and older, and the questions they ask begin to hit the nail on the head. Yongchang naturally won all the way and answered every question perfectly. Any more questions? Yongchang took a sip of the mineral water bottle he brought before class, moistened his dry throat, and asked. There was silence in the classroom. Yongchang looked at Xian Zixuan and Jiang Yangxing, who had the right to speak. But obviously, the two were still immersed in the deduction steps on the blackboard. Xian Zixuan's pupils shrank slightly, and his face was full of disbelief. As for Jiang Yangxing, his face was full of shock and excitement. As for the other professors, the expressions on their faces were even more exciting. Ahem. Yongchang, go back to the dormitory first. We still need to discuss it carefully. Guan Huolian realized the seriousness of the problem from the expressions of everyone, and immediately said to Yongchang, these few days, don't run around, try to be active in school. Yongchang nodded lightly, turned around, pushed open the door of the classroom and walked out. Chapter 5 Convening a full house meeting. When Yongchang left, the classroom fell into silence again. The professors looked solemnly at the blackboard in front of them. After a long time, Xian Zixuan slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air. This kid is unusual. Jiang Yangxing on the side also nodded in agreement. That's right, at least, I don't see any logical loopholes. Guan Huolian's pupils shrank slightly, and he looked at Jiang Yangxing beside him with a surprised expression. Dean Jiang, you mean this plan is feasible? Jiang Yangxing hesitated for a while. Maybe it's because my level is too low. After all, I don't specialize in controllable nuclear fusion. As he spoke, Jiang Yangxing turned to look at Xian Zixuan. Din Xian, the molecular formula of the new material. What do you think, Xian? Zixuan's eyes showed a bit of bitterness, and he slowly shook his head and said, I don't know. What? How is it possible? All the professors exclaimed in surprise. Even Jiang Yangxing was shocked and said, Old Xian, don't be joking. When it comes to materials science, you are one of the best at Sandaokao University. Even you can't figure out this material. The bitterness in Xian Zixuan's eyes became more and more obvious. He sighed deeply, stood up and walked towards the blackboard. He stood in front of the projector screen, reached out and slowly brushed the slightly rough projector screen, and murmured to himself, materials, the more I know about them, the more ignorant I feel. The molecular formula of this new material, I can confirm that it has never appeared anywhere, although I don't know what the performance of this material can reach. But it definitely has amazing high temperature and high pressure resistance properties. I have a hunch that this panel book and the deduction process of new materials are the best part. After hearing this, everyone was moved. Everyone present is engaged in scientific research, so they naturally understand the concept of scientific research intuition. In scientific research work, scientific research intuition often plays a great role. Although this statement is very mysterious, but it is the fact. The more top scientists are, the more accurate their scientific research intuition is. Kekule discovered the benzene ring structure. Mendeleev discovered the rules of the periodic table of element. These amazing scientific research results are more or less assisted by scientific research intuition. In many cases, the scientific research intuition of top scientists can often take shortcuts in many complicated roads. Jiang Yangxing glanced around at the professors around him with a solemn expression, and said in a deep voice, since you said so, Old Xian, I suggest that a meeting of the whole hospital be held immediately. All professors from the School of Materials and School of Nuclear Physics must be present. After pondering for a moment, Jiang Yangxing added again, in addition, let the professors from the Nuclear Physics Laboratory come out and discuss this plan. If it is really feasible, perhaps the day when our Xia Kingdom will be revived will be today. Sandaokao University point. The weather in early September is the hottest time point. The blazing sun penetrated the dense leaves and cast countless light spots on the asphalt road point. No one could have imagined that one day in the future, the sun would personally drag human civilization into the abyss. Yongchang walked quietly on the asphalt road. Countless complicated expressions flashed in his eyes. In his mind, he was still replaying the scene of the helium flash in his previous life. Do you know why I did this? I, like you, bits and pieces of images of Su Yutang working as his assistant in his previous life kept flashing in his mind. Yongchang clenched his fist slightly. In his previous life, he gave up all love for his children for the sake of scientific research. As a result, not only did he fail to respond to the feelings of those around him, but even human civilization was indirectly destroyed in his hands. In this life, he must make up for all his regrets. The brightest star in the night sky. Yongchang looked stunned, with a look of nostalgia in his eyes. This is the ringtone he has used for many years. He took out his mobile phone from his pocket and looked at this familiar and ancient gadget, the nostalgia in his eyes getting stronger. The phone screen lights up. Seeing the call information displayed on the screen, Yongchang's eyes flashed with excitement. He swiped the phone screen with trembling hands and answered the call. Mom. Yongchang's voice was choked up. The next moment, a gentle female voice came from the microphone. Yongchang, what's wrong with you? Why does the sound weird? Yongchang quickly adjusted his emotions and said with a forced smile, it's okay, I choked on a sip when I was drinking water. Mom, what's the matter? It's nothing. I just wanted to ask you what your plans are next. After all, you are also a sophomore. Yongchang was silent for a while and said firmly, Mom, I'm going to engage in scientific research. What? Scientific research work? A male voice came from the other end of the microphone. What's so good about scientific research? I didn't let him study in the physics department at that time because I was afraid of something like this happening. Now it's better. There was a bit of a smile in Yongchang's eyes. That was the voice of his father, Lu Guoqing. Facing Lu's father's complaint, Lu's mother Zhao Qingru interrupted him angrily. Okay, stop saying a few words. Let your son choose his own life. Yongchang, since you have decided to do scientific research, my mother supports you. Don't worry about your dad. I will talk to him properly. That's it. If you encounter any difficulties, just call back. Before Yongchang could speak, the call was hung up. Listening to the busy tone on the phone, Yongchang smiled bitterly and shook his head. His father, Lu Guoqing, is a businessman. Thanks to this, he has been accustomed to living a privileged life since he was a child. Because of this, Lu Guoqing's plan for his future has always been to take over the family business and become a leisurely rich man. But whether in his previous life for this life, Yongchang did not follow his father's plan. Beijing. In a small villa. Hey, Qingru, just spoil him. Okay, what kind of messy scientific research are you doing? A middle-aged man wearing casual home clothes sat on the sofa and said angrily, that thing is so tiring, and it may not be able to achieve anything. Next to the man sat a gentle woman with long hair reaching her waist. Hearing her husband's complaint, the woman chuckled. Why are you in such a hurry? Don't you still know Yongchang's temperament? The more you don't let him do it, the more he will have to wade into troubled waters. Just let him go. When the time comes and you hit a wall, you will naturally turn around. His wife's words made Lu Guoqing's eyes suddenly light up. That makes sense. Naturally, Yongchang didn't know what happened at home. At this time, his thoughts were on controllable nuclear fusion. I don't know how those professors judged that plan. Chapter 6, Xiaoguo's Fortune. Sandayo Cal University, conference room. Hundreds of professors and researchers took their seats. Everyone, I called you here today, mainly to verify the plan of an undergraduate student, Jiang. Yongchang sat on the stage and spoke into the microphone with a serious face. As soon as he finished speaking, the quiet conference room exploded with a bang. What's going on, Dean Jiang? Undergraduate student's plan? This also requires a whole department meeting. Hey, I still have an experiment that I haven't finished yet. It looks like I have to work overtime again today. All the researchers sighed. It's not surprising that they complained. As researchers, it's normal for them to have heavy research tasks. It's easy to complain about a meeting during working hours, let alone the purpose of this meeting is to verify the plan of a young undergraduate. Yongchang coughed hard and suppressed the noise in the conference room. This is a plan for controlled nuclear fusion. Dean Yongchang and I have both read this plan. Unfortunately, we are a little unsure. In order not to miss this possible solution, we have no choice but to hold a meeting of the whole hospital. I hope that professors and researchers can understand. A look of shock flashed across the faces of all the professors present. Not sure. These are Yongchang and Yongchang, a plan that neither of them could grasp. In just 2 sentences, a hint of interest quietly appeared in the eyes of all the professors. Bang. The door to the conference room was pushed open. More than a dozen professors in white coats filed in. The leader of the middle-aged man has a standard Chinese character face, and his eyes are full of excitement. Old Jiang, where is the controllable nuclear fusion plan you just mentioned? The moment they saw the visitor, the professors in the conference room gasped. Hiss. This big boss is out, wasn't he ordered to study controllable nuclear fusion in the laboratory? Could it be that the plan proposed by this undergraduate is really, while the professors in the audience were whispering, Yongchang stood up from his seat with a smile and walked towards the middle-aged man. Ha ha ha, Fang Zhu, long time no see. Fang Zhu glanced at Yongchang angrily. Dean Jiang, don't do this with me. We are doing experiments in the laboratory. After hearing what you said, we interrupted the experiment and ran out. If you can't give me a satisfactory result, I won't spare you. Yongchang had been dealing with Fang Zhu for more than 10 years, so he naturally knew that his words were all joking. He immediately smiled and patted Fang Zhu on the shoulder. Okay, what more experiments are you doing? I'll tell you, this plan, if it is possible, our Zaya Kingdom will be ahead of everyone else. Hearing this, Fang Zhu's eyes showed a bit of surprise in his impression. As the dean of the School of Nuclear Physics, Yongchang had never spoken with such high praise. Oh, Fang Zhu said calmly, according to what you said, you are very confident in that undergraduate. Yongchang nodded slightly, his expression slightly serious. It's not just me. Even this old boy Yongchang can't grasp this plan. As soon as these words came out, Fang Zhu's expression changed slightly. After all, Yongchang does not specialize in controllable nuclear fusion, so he may still miss something. But Yongchang is a real expert in the materials department. That's an academician of the Zaya Academy of Sciences. Fang Zhu suddenly became more energetic. He nodded slightly and said, in that case, let's start the meeting. Yongchang turned around and scanned the venue to make sure everyone was present, then reached out and turned on the projector in the conference room. The next moment, several high-definition photos appeared on the projection screen in the conference room. Everyone, this is the plan written by that student. Shashisha. In the huge conference room, the only sounds left were the clock on the wall and the sound of the pen tip rubbing. Every professor frowned and carefully checked the various calculations on the projector. As the head of the nuclear physics laboratory, Fang Zhu's eyes were filled with shock. Old Fang, how are you? Seeing Fang Zhu's expression, Yongchang lowered his voice and asked, is this plan feasible? Fang Zhu withdrew his gaze with a complicated expression and glanced at Yongchang strangely. Ah, you sure this is a toy made by an undergraduate? Yongchang smiled and nodded. Of course, this kid is a student in Professor Guanhua Liang's class. He was caught in a daze during class. Then, this kid ran directly onto the stage, picked up a whiteboard marker, and wrote down this plan. Seeing the look on Fang Zhu's face getting weirder and weirder, Yongchang suddenly became anxious. Don't believe it. I have all these videos. Fang Zhu opened his mouth, but didn't say a word. This thing really shocked him too much. As the person in charge of the nuclear physics laboratory, if he was ranked second in his understanding of controllable nuclear fusion, no one present would dare to be ranked first. Old Jiang, do you know, the writing on this blackboard is even more complete than the plan in our laboratory. Comparing his plan, I have found 3 loopholes in our plan. This is just a rough look. Do you know what this means? When Fang Zhu said this. Even Jiang Yangxing was stunned. This means that the level of this sophomore undergraduate is even higher than Fang Zhu? How is this possible? Fang Zhu is an academician of the Xia Academy of Sciences. Jiang Yangxing swallowed his saliva, reached out and gently supported his forehead, muttering to himself, "Wait, I feel a little dizzy." You mean, not only did you not find any mistakes in his plan, but you even picked out several loopholes in our plan by comparison. Seeing Fang Zhu nod, Jiang Yangxing felt that his mind exploded with a bang. His face flushed, and he slapped the conference table in front of him. The huge sound attracted the attention of all the professors and researchers present. But, great, this is a blessing for my Xia country. Jiang Yangxing's lips trembled slightly with excitement. Controlled nuclear fusion. This is a controlled nuclear fusion plan. If it really succeeds, not to mention the academic status of Sandaokao University, even the national strength of Xia will rise to a higher level in an instant. Perhaps infected by Jiang Yangxing's high emotions, Fang Zhu's face was also full of excitement at this time. President Jiang, I apply to report this matter to the parliament immediately. As for the new material, I apply to start the preparation experiment immediately. If it really succeeds, the revival of my Xia country is just around the corner. Just as the two were excited, an untimely voice came. No, I object. Chapter 7 I object. No, I object. Harsh sounds echoed in the conference room. Jiang Yangxing turned his head and looked in the direction of the sound point. After seeing the speaker, Jiang Yangxing's pupils shrank slightly. Pointed him. Mao Jingquan, what do you mean? Jiang Yangxing frowned and asked. Mao Jingquan sneered. What do I mean? Don't you know, this is a scam. Can a sophomore undergraduate student write a plan of this level? My senior dean, can you think carefully about it? Is this really possible? If you ask me, this is just a young man trying to impress people. In my opinion, the most important thing to do now is not to report it to the police, but to find out this stinky boy who is sensationalizing. Our Sandaokao University does not welcome such opportunistic students. Jiang Yangxing's frown deepened. Vice President Mao, I won't say this is impossible. As scientific researchers, we should seek truth from facts. Tell me, have you found any loopholes in this plan? Mao Jingquan's expression changed slightly, and after pondering for a moment, he said, loophole, isn't this loophole still obvious? Where does a sophomore student get this knowledge? What's more, I also watched the deduction process of the new material. In just a few strokes, a new material appeared on the tip of the pen. Are you kidding? What about the experimental data? What is the difference between a plan without experimental data and a fantasy? Mao Jingquan's words moved the hearts of many professors present. Yes, this plan seems perfect, but the biggest flaw is that there is no experimental data to support it. To put it harshly, this plan is just an idea on paper. Jiang Yangxing sneered. At this time, he was already a little angry. In his opinion, this is simply making excuses. Vice President Mao, tell me, where will a sophomore undergraduate go to do experiments and obtain data? As a scientific researcher, what you should say is definitely not impossible. Fang Zhu, who was on the side, couldn't stand it any longer. He stood up and asked, Vice President Mao, you just said that this plan lacks experimental data. Mao Jingquan nodded naturally. As the deputy dean of the School of Nuclear Physics, he believed that he had the right to question the plan written by this mere undergraduate. Fang Zhu sneered. Do you know that this plan is even more complete than the plan of my nuclear physics laboratory? Do you know how many experiments it took to arrive at the results of the physics laboratory plan? You don't know anything. You just say it's impossible. As a vice president, I don't see any scientific research spirit in you. Fang Zhu didn't show any mercy to Mao Jingquan. After all, as the head of the nuclear physics laboratory, Fang Zhu is not under Mao Jingquan's jurisdiction. Mao Jingquan looked at Jiang Yangxing with an ugly expression. Dean Jiang, you, why? Jiang Yangxing sighed slightly and waved his hand to interrupt Mao Jingquan's unspoken words. Okay, Vice President Mao, I think you are tired too. Go home and have a good rest for a while. You don't need to worry about the affairs in the college for the time being, Mao. Jinquan's pupils shrank suddenly. He looked at Jiang Yangxing in front of him in disbelief and said with an angry smile, Dean Jiang, are you going to attack me, the deputy dean, for a sophomore undergraduate? Hearing this, Jiang Yangxing's eyes became more disappointed. He shook his head slowly. Mao Jinquan, I'm not attacking you because of a sophomore undergraduate. I'm here for scientific research and for the future of Zia country. Yes, this plan is not supported by any data, but tell me, if this plan is true, according to your treatment plan, how much loss will our Sandaokao University, no, our Zia kingdom suffer? Mao Jinquan's face became increasingly ugly. He nodded angrily, turned around, left his seat, and walked towards the door of the conference room. HMPH. I want to see if you can solve the problem of controllable nuclear fusion with this sophomore undergraduate. After saying these harsh words, Mao Jinquan reached out and opened the door of the conference room and walked out. Bang. There was a dull sound when the conference room door closed. Jiang Yangxing smiled bitterly and shook his head. Fang Zhu, let you see the joke. Fang Zhu shook his head thoughtfully and said, Old Jiang, it's time for your school of nuclear physics to be reorganized. The deputy dean doesn't even want to do research anymore. How can this be embarrassing? Jiang Yangxing was silent for a moment, nodded, and then turned his attention to the professors and researchers in the audience. Seeing Jiang Yangxing's meaningful eyes, all the professors and researchers lowered their heads and acted like ostriches. Some senior professors were slightly shocked. It seems that the School of Nuclear Physics is going to cause quite a stir. Okay, everyone must have read this plan, right? If you have any doubts, feel free to speak out. After a few minutes, Jiang Yangxing, who received no response, chuckled. Since no one has any doubts, let's start voting now. The content of the vote will naturally be whether this plan needs to be submitted to the parliament. An hour later, Jiang Yangxing brought Fang Zhu to his office. He walked straight to the desk, reached out and picked up the receiver of the landline phone on the desk, and pressed a special button. A few seconds later, a voice came from the microphone. Hello, Professor Jiang, what can I do for you? Please help me transfer to the Zia State Parliament. I have something to report about controlled nuclear fusion. Okay, wait a moment. After waiting for a short time, a steady male voice came from the microphone. Dean Jiang, hello, I'm the Minister of Science and Technology of Zia State, Han Kaiming. Jiang Yangxing's eyes moved slightly. It turned out that the call was answered by the Minister of Science and Technology, Han Kaiming. It seems that controlled nuclear fusion is becoming more and more important in the eyes of the top leaders of Zia State. Hello, Minister Han, I need to report something to you. Jiang Yangxing told the whole story in full. Dean Jiang, are you serious? A sophomore undergraduate wrote a highly feasible controlled nuclear fusion plan on the blackboard. Jiang Yangxing smiled bitterly and turned to look at Fang Zhu beside him. He guessed that this situation would happen, so he brought Fang Zhu with him. Fang Zhu hurriedly stepped forward and took the phone from Jiang Yangxing. Minister Han, this is Fang Zhu. Yes, it's true. I can guarantee that this plan is highly feasible. Okay, Fang Zhu put the phone back to its original position and hung up the phone. What do you mean? Jiang Yangxing looked at Fang Zhu anxiously. Fang Zhu said solemnly, Minister Han said that this matter is of great importance and he needs to report to the #1 council speaker. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Chairman of the Council. Chairman, Jiang Yangxing took a breath. Why, how did it get to Council early? Fang Zhu's face was a little heavy, and he said softly, there is something you may not know yet. Something seems to have happened in Xiago. Jiang Yangxing's face changed instantly. What? something happened to ITER. ITER, the full name of the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor Project. It is a superconducting tokamak device that can produce large-scale nuclear fusion reactions. As one of the member states, Zyaglo can use this device to obtain a lot of useful controlled nuclear fusion information. As for why not build one yourself, the reason is very simple. It's expensive and troublesome. The entire ITER project took 13 years and cost 5 billion yuan. Although Zyaglo has developed well in recent years, it is still a bit too extravagant to spend so much money to build a test machine. After all, whether the tokamak device can carry controlled nuclear fusion is still an unknown. If you spend money and time to build a big thing that has no use, wouldn't it be a big loss? Beijing. Within the first ring. A place that can't be found on the map. Han Kaiming stood at the door of the office and knocked on the door with a solemn expression. Come in. An old voice came from inside the door. Han Kaiming slowly pushed open the door and walked in. A grey-haired old man was sitting behind his desk and looking at him quietly. The old man's eyes were full of wisdom and confidence, as if everything in the world was under his control. Member Lee. Han Kaiming greeted the old man respectfully. The old man put down the pen in his hand and slowly said, Minister Hong, I heard that you have something very important to report to me. Han Kaiming nodded quickly and told the old man the truth about what Sandaokao University reported. Member Lee's face gradually became serious. Ah, you serious, Han? Kaiming hesitated for a while, nodded and said, it should be true. Academician Fang Zhu, you should remember it, right? Member Lee nodded and said, of course I remember. The latest controlled nuclear fusion achievement of Zaya country was achieved by his team, right? This matter is related to him, Han. Kaiming nodded again and affirmed, Fang Zhu and the professor of Sandaokao University have made a preliminary assessment of the plan, and he is very confident in this plan. Member Lee was silent again for a moment. He reached out and pulled out a document from the pile of documents on the side and handed it to Han Kaiming. Let's not talk about this first. Take a look at this document, Han. Kaiming reached out to take the document with a puzzled look on his face. The moment he saw the title, a trace of anger appeared in his eyes at a speed visible to the naked eye. This is impossible. Zaya country's scientists will never do such a despicable thing. Member Lee sighed deeply. With a little worry in his eyes, he shook his head slowly and said, possible or impossible, we don't have the final say on this. The ITER project has long wanted to kick us out, so it doesn't matter whether our scientists have done this or not. Han Kaiming hesitated. But, this reputation is too bad. Han Kaiming bit his back teeth hard and looked at the document in his hand again. The document detailed the behavior of Zyaglo's ITER project researchers who stole important experimental data without authorization. Then, what should we do? Can we just watch ITER frame us? Member Lee said calmly, in addition to framing, they also asked us to voluntarily withdraw from the ITER project. This news will probably be officially released tomorrow. Boom. Han Kaiming felt that the blood vessels in his brain exploded in an instant. How can this be? This is simply too much. Councilman Lee slowly said, I asked you to read this document, not for anything else, but to tell you one thing. Next, Zyaglo can only rely on ourselves in the research of controlled nuclear fusion. So, you should understand what to do, right? Facing Councilman Lee's meaningful gaze, Han Kaiming's face slightly sterned. Yes, please, rest assured, Councilman Lee, I will go to Sandaokao University right now. In the evening, after wandering around the campus for a day, Lu Yongchang returned to the dormitory. Wow. Brother Lu, you are finally back. As soon as he opened the door of the dormitory, the voice of his roommate Wookie came from the dormitory. Brother Lu, what are you doing in the physics class today? Faced with the curious question of his roommate, Lu Yongchang laughed awkwardly, and for a moment he didn't know how to explain. Could he tell him that he was reborn? After a moment of hesitation, a barely acceptable reason slowly emerged in his heart. Ahem. I found some time to research something a while ago. When I was in class, I suddenly had an idea and started writing it on the stage. Woo. Key's eyes were more curious. Research? What did you research? By the way. What did Professor Guan keep you for? He didn't want you to drop out, did he? LV. Yongchang. Drop out? Why drop out? Don't even mention dropping out of school. He will probably be enrolled soon. Of course, he definitely can't say this to Wookiee. The professor thinks my research is valuable, gave me affirmation, and then let me come back. Woo. Key. That's it. Woo. Key looked at LV Yongchang in surprise. Don't bluff me. They all say that Professor Guan is very strict. LV. Yongchang hurriedly changed the subject. What happened in the physics class this morning? Didn't spread. Woo. Key hurriedly shook his head, his face a little more serious. Don't worry, except for the students in class. I guess no one else knows. LV. Yongchang's eyes widened slightly, and he looked at Wookiee in front of him with horror. Are you serious? In this era of gossip, he is even ready to become famous in one fell swoop. Wookiee didn't say anything, but turned around and took out an A4 printed paper from the side and handed it to LV Yongchang. Point confidentiality agreement. Seeing the big black characters on the A4 paper, LV Yongchang smiled bitterly and shook his head. Point unexpectedly, Professor Guan was so reliable that he even asked all the students to sign a confidentiality agreement. But it's okay this way. Point the sun has not started to change yet. Point if Zaya wants to become the leader of the Earth People's Union, it can only rely on this last chance to overtake. As a native of Zaya, LV Yongchang naturally hopes that everyone in Zaya can survive the disaster in the future. As for how to survive, he has already thought about it. Since the destruction of the sun is a foregone conclusion, he can only lead mankind to escape from the Earth within 20 years. Only the endless starry sky above is the only way to survive in the future. Chapter 9 Sonoluminescence. The next morning, just after dawn, LV Yongchang got up and left the dormitory. Point this was a habit he developed in his previous life. Point in the early morning of September, there was a slight chill in the wind. Point looking at the deserted main road of the university, LV Yongchang couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Point this, where should he go? Perhaps it was a habit left over from his previous life. LV Yongchang, who had no research tasks in his hands, always felt empty in his heart. Point he didn't know how the controlled nuclear fusion plan he proposed was reviewed. It shouldn't go wrong, right? Although he was very confident in the plan, he didn't have much confidence in his current identity. Point now he is just an ordinary sophomore undergraduate student at Sindao University. Point thinking about it now, he himself felt that this was a bit reckless, but thinking that he only had 20 years, LV Yongchang was a little helpless. He didn't have time to waste. There are 8 billion humans living on Earth. To send all 8 billion humans into space and go to the next habitable planet, the level of technology required is extremely exaggerated. Originally in his plan, it would be extremely lucky if only 10 million of the 8 billion humans could escape. But since he learned about the existence of the technology tree system, his mind suddenly became active. Point perhaps, as long as he climbed the technology tree fast enough, all humans could escape the Earth alive. If the first level civilization doesn't work, then the second level civilization. If it doesn't work again, he doesn't believe that the third level civilization can't do this. While thinking about the plan for the next 20 years in his mind, Lu Yongchang wandered aimlessly around the campus. Suddenly, he saw a familiar building from the corner of his eye. Point a white building. Point this is the library of Sindao University. Lu Yongchang's eyes moved slightly, and he turned and walked towards the library. Point entering the library, Lu Yongchang subconsciously followed his muscle memory to find a seat that he liked to stay in the last life the most. Point no one occupied the seat. A hint of joy appeared in his eyes. But what should I look at? Lu Yongchang's eyes moved slightly. Point he thought of the information prompted by the technology tree system. Prerequisite: analyzing the sonoluminescence phenomenon. It seems that I have to find some books about the sonoluminescence phenomenon. The time spent reading always flies in the blink of an eye. More than 2 hours pass quickly. LV Yongchang closed the book in front of him and thoughtfully wrote down a few key points on the A4 paper in front of him. Peacock mantis shrimp, the so-called sonoluminescence phenomenon was first discovered in a creature called peacock mantis shrimp and nature point when attacking prey. Peacock mantis shrimp can eject the front end of its limbs within 1/50th of a second, with a maximum speed of more than 80 km per hour, and the acceleration is comparable to that of a bullet. In this process, sonoluminescence can be generated. The sonoluminescence phenomenon has also been studied by countless researchers. The principle is very simple. When mechanical waves act on liquids, a mechanical wave cavitation phenomenon will occur in the liquid point, that is, bubbles will be generated in the liquid, and the bubbles will then collapse to a very small volume. During the collapse, the bubble will generate extremely high temperatures, and at this moment, a flash of light will be emitted. Yongchang keenly grasped a key factor: the bubble will generate extremely high temperatures. It seems that the miniaturization technology of fusion reactors will start from this small bubble. After all, the initiation of nuclear fusion requires a high temperature of hundreds of millions of degrees Celsius as a prerequisite. Hello, classmate. Is there anyone sitting here? Just as Yongchang was immersed in reading various paper materials, a slightly cold female voice came into his ears from the side point. This voice, why does it sound familiar? He raised his head suddenly and looked around. The moment he saw the person coming, Yongchang's heart twitched violently. It's her. Obviously, Yongchang's excessive action scared the girl in front of him. She stepped back in fear and apologized repeatedly. Sorry, if there is someone I can. No. You sit down. Yongchang interrupted the girl's words directly, and then he forced a stiff smile on his face. I was a little scared just now, and my reaction was a little big. Sorry. The girl smiled and waved her hands, saying repeatedly, it's okay, I asked too abruptly. Then the girl sat down generously on the seat next to Yongchang. Looking at the girl's profile, Yongchang's eyes showed a bit of trance, as if he had returned to the last life. Su Yutang was the same at that time, sitting quietly on the chair next to him to help him deal with various scientific research tasks. As if she noticed Yongchang's gaze, the girl raised her head and looked at him. Hello. The girl looked at Yongchang with a puzzled look and whispered, what's the matter? He suddenly came back to his senses, bit the tip of his tongue hard, and pulled himself out of the memory fragments with the severe pain. It's okay. I just thought you looked familiar. As he said that, Yongchang forced himself to turn his head and focus on the paper in front of him. The girl looked at Yongchang's profile with a strange expression, and subconsciously moved to the side. I always feel that this person's eyes are a little strange. She regretted sitting in this position. As for Yongchang, he naturally didn't know what the girl was thinking. At this time, he had already attracted his attention to a paper on the relationship between sonoluminescence phenomenon and cold nuclear fusion. The moment he saw the title of this paper, Yongchang's breath suddenly choked. Could it be that someone has already developed the technology for miniaturizing fusion reactors? Impossible. In the last life, even controlled nuclear fusion was successfully developed in 2040, not to mention the technology for miniaturizing fusion reactors. In other words, according to normal development, it will take another 10 years for the real controlled nuclear fusion technology to appear. Yongchang quickly flipped through the literature in his hand. After a long time, he exhaled a breath of turbid air, and a little relief flashed in his eyes. He thought too much. This paper is just a guess, and there is basically no in-depth research. It can be said that it is equivalent to a waste manuscript. No wonder he had never seen this paper in his previous life. He glanced at the author of the paper, Tao Yuda. He could talk to him if he had a chance. Although the paper was not very useful, this scientific research intuition was quite accurate. If he was really a talented person, Yongchang would not mind including him in his future R/U0026D team. Click. Just as Yongchang was thinking over there, the sound of a ballpoint pen ratchet moving came from the side. Chapter 10, LN-039, HPITA LN-039, S law will work, right? Yongchang frowned slightly. In his memory, he seemed to have lost his temper once because of this sound. After all, In the tense scientific research tasks, the rhythmic clicking sound of a ballpoint pen ratchet is simply a life-threatening artifact. He looked in the direction where the sound came from. Point out. The girl next to him was holding a pink ballpoint pen in her hand, frowning and looking at a workbook in front of her. And her right hand was unconsciously pressing the ballpoint pen head. LV Yongchang's eyes showed a bit of helplessness. He remembered in his previous life. It was because of Su Yutang's habit that he rarely lost his temper during a scientific research task. From then on, Su Yutang changed this habit. But now, obviously, she has not corrected this bad habit. LV Yongchang knew very well that if she did not quickly solve the problem in front of her, it was estimated that this clicking sound would accompany him all day. Helplessly, LV Yongchang took a deep breath, turned his head, and whispered, "Classmate, have you encountered any difficulties?" Su Yutang was startled, and the action of pressing the ballpoint pen in her hand suddenly stopped. Seeing that it was LV Yongchang who asked the question, a trace of vigilance flashed in her eyes. Could it be that this boy finally mustered up the courage to approach her? At that moment, Su Yutang had even thought of at least 3 ways to refuse. "I said, have you encountered any difficulties?" LV Yongchang noticed the vigilance in Su Yutang's eyes and pointed helplessly at the exercise book in front of her, and then pointed at the ballpoint pen in her hand. The sound is a bit noisy." The two looked at each other in silence. Gradually, an embarrassed look appeared on Su Yutang's face. She blushed a little on both sides of her cheeks, nodded gently and said, "Sorry, I disturbed you. I will try to restrain this habit." LV Yongchang said helplessly and reluctantly, "Show me the question. Maybe I can help you solve it." Joke. Try to restrain yourself. He didn't want to be disturbed when reading a paper. Sure enough, women will only slow down the progress of his research. Really? Su Yutang's eyes showed a touch of surprise, and then he hurriedly put the exercise book in front of him in front of Lu Yongchang. Then he looked at Lu Yongchang expectantly. Looking at Su Yutang's appearance, Lu Yongchang suddenly had an image in his heart. Hamster. At this time, Su Yutang was just like a large hamster, holding a melon seed in his hand, staring at him blankly. LV Yongchang sighed again and turned his head to look at the exercise book in front of him. Extremely basic limit problem type. You know how to use L'Hopital's rule, right? Just solve this problem once. It's very simple. As he said this, LV Yongchang was about to return the exercise book to Su Yutang. But obviously, he overestimated Su Yutang at this moment. Seeing Su Yutang looking around with a confused look, LV Yongchang sighed again. "Forget it. I'll write out the steps for you." As he said this, he picked up the pen in his hand and quickly wrote down the standard problem-solving steps on an A4 paper in front of him, and then handed it to Su Yutang together with the exercise book. Compared with ballpoint pens, LV Yongchang is more accustomed to fountain pens. He likes the swish sound of fountain pens writing on paper. Thank you, Su Yutang subconsciously took the exercise book and said thank you softly. Looking at the beautiful fountain pen handwriting on the A4 paper, Su Yutang subconsciously glanced at the somewhat round handwriting on his draft paper, and a trace of embarrassment and curiosity appeared in his eyes. "Can I ask your name?" "I'm Su Yutang from the Department of Applied Physics." LV Yongchang didn't turn his head and gave his name impatiently. LV Yongchang, just now, because of solving problems and talking, he has wasted nearly 5 minutes. Sure enough, women will only become stumbling blocks on his research path. While sighing in his heart, LV Yongchang turned his eyes to another paper, a brief analysis of the influencing factors of sonoluminescence phenomenon. At this time, he had completely forgotten the guilt he felt towards Su Yutang not long ago. Of course, even if he recalled it, he had sufficient reasons to convince himself. There are a lot of reasons, like it's inappropriate to talk about love at the critical moment of human survival. What's more, Su Yutang at this time is not Su Yutang in the previous life. She doesn't feel good about herself at all. As for Su Yutang, after being defeated by LV Yongchang, she turned around with embarrassment and continued to study the exercise book in front of her. Ding dong. A message alert sounded from the phone beside him, interrupting LV Yongchang's action of flipping through the paper. He raised his head slightly and looked at the phone on the table. A piece of news appeared on the lock screen. Zhao announced that it would withdraw from the ITER project. Shocked, the reason behind ZIGUO's withdrawal from the ITER project was moral corruption. How could researchers do such a thing? LV Yongchang's heart skipped a beat. He remembered at this time, ZIGUO was severely targeted in the ITER project, and had no choice but to withdraw from the ITER project. This also laid hidden dangers for the future. The time when ZIGUO successfully developed controlled nuclear fusion technology was more than 2 years later than that of Western countries. Therefore, ZIGUO did not have much say in the last human union. It was not until LV Yongchang successfully became the chief scientist of the Human Union Academy of Sciences that ZIGUO's status began to gradually improve. It was not until then that LV Yongchang knew that behind ZIGUO's voluntary withdrawal from the ITER project was a series of frame-ups. Damn. LV Yongchang looked at the mobile phone on the table with cold eyes. As a ZIGUO, he would never allow such a thing to happen again. So what if he withdrew from ITER? He wanted to let all the countries targeting ZIGUO know that the future world would be decided by ZIGUO. LV Yongchang quickly packed up the things on the table and stood up to leave. He couldn't wait. He needed to take the initiative to ask Professor Guan Hualiang about the results of the review. Huh? Are you leaving, Su? Yu Tong's unique cold voice came from the side. LV Yongchang nodded lightly, without saying much, and left on his own. TSK. So cool, Su. Yu Tong looked at LV Yongchang's back, and curled her lips. You deserve to be single for life. The next moment, she was attracted by the A4 paper left on the table by LV Yongchang. Looking at the densely packed formulas and symbols on it, she covered her slightly open lips with her hand in surprise. She thought that this boy was in the same grade as her. Now it seems that he is probably a big guy who is studying for a master's degree or a doctorate. Su Yutang's eyes flashed with a bit of strange colors, and the seeds of curiosity gradually took root in her heart. Chapter 11. I believe in ZIGUO's scientists. Sandaokou University, Nuclear Physics Laboratory. Bang. A loud noise came from the deepest office. Several researchers trembled slightly, stopped their work, and looked up at the deepest office. What happened to Academician Fang? A researcher asked the person next to him softly with doubts in his eyes. The researcher who was questioned shook his head slowly, and his face was also full of confusion. I don't know. Our recent experiments have not failed. Why did Academician Fang suddenly lose his temper? Just when everyone was confused, the door of the deepest office was pulled open. Fang Zhu walked out of the office with a flushed face. Damn it. How could ITER do this? The laboratory was quiet, and Fang Zhu's muttering to himself was particularly clear. The researcher who had just spoken plucked up his courage and asked Fang Zhu softly, Academician Fang, what happened to ITER? Hearing the question, Fang Zhu raised his head suddenly and glanced at the researcher who asked the question. Then, he said with a somewhat ugly face, ITER said, our country's scientists copied the experimental data without authorization and took it out of the laboratory. Wow. As soon as Fang Zhu said this, there was an uproar in the nuclear physics laboratory. Academician Fang, is this true? Hearing the questioning of his subordinates, Fang Zhu's face became more and more ugly. He shook his head vigorously and said, of course it's impossible. The scientists sent by my Zia country are all upright gentlemen. Not only are they highly skilled in scientific research, but their character is also first class. They will never do such a shameful thing without authorization. Then, how is ITER going to deal with this matter? A researcher asked with a nervous face. You know, this kind of behavior is the bottom line that cannot be touched in every research institution, let alone an international organization like ITER, even an ordinary private laboratory. Once this kind of data theft is caught, the thief will pay an extremely heavy price. A trace of pain flashed in Fang Zhu's eyes the next moment. He slowly closed his eyes and sighed deeply. ZIGUO announced to voluntarily withdraw from the ITER project. As Fang Zhu said this, the discussion in the nuclear physics laboratory instantly dissipated. Every researcher looked at Fang Zhu with an incredible look. This news was just announced this morning. Fang Zhu said with some difficulty. Everyone, we need to carry the banner of controlled nuclear fusion research in the future. Suddenly, Fang Zhu's eyes moved slightly. Everyone, suspend the research tasks in hand, and concentrate on preparing a new type of material, as he said. Fang Zhu turned on a computer in the laboratory and downloaded the photo of LV Yongchang's blackboard writing to the computer. At the same time, at the gate of Sandaokou University Point, a black Audi A6 slowly passed the security booth and drove into Sandaokou University Point without stopping. The Audi A6 drove straight towards the nuclear physics laboratory. Knock, knock, knock. LV Yongchang stood at the door of an office with an anxious look on his face, and knocked on the door. "The door is not locked. Come in." Professor Guan Hualiang's voice came from the office. LV Yongchang hurriedly turned the door handle and pushed the door open. "It's you." Seeing the person coming, Professor Guan Hualiang was slightly startled. Then, he hurriedly put down the pen in his hand, stood up and greeted LV Yongchang. "Why, Yongchang, what do you want?" Since attending the whole institute meeting yesterday, Guan Hualiang has regarded LV Yongchang as a scholar who is on an equal footing with himself. This equal footing refers to academic status even in Guan Hualiang's view. Although LV Yongchang is only a sophomore, his academic status is far higher than his own. After all, Guan Hualiang thinks that he is just an ordinary university professor, but LV Yongchang is very likely to be a rising star in the academic world, who has completed controlled nuclear fusion. LV Yongchang didn't notice Guan Hualiang standing up to greet him. He said with a slightly ugly expression, "Professor Guan, have you seen the news?" Guan Hualiang paused, his expression slightly dim. "You mean the ITER thing?" LV Yongchang nodded gently. Guan Hualiang took a deep breath and waved to LV Yongchang. "Yongchang, sit down first." Seeing LV Yongchang sitting on the chair, he slowly sat down and said, "Yongchang, I believe that our country scientists will not do such a thing. I believe that there must be some unknown secrets in this incident." LV Yongchang's eyes moved slightly. As a reborn person, he certainly knew that Guan Hualiang's speculation was completely correct, but with his current identity, he cannot make the truth of the matter public. Even LV Yongchang can imagine that the top leaders of our country cannot disclose the truth. All the humiliation will be weighed on the heads of those scientists. In everyone's opinion, the scientist who performed the copying data operation was the culprit. It was not until more than 10 years later that their guilt was completely washed away. But it was too late. Thinking of this, Lu Yongchang clenched his fists tightly. "Professor, what was the result of yesterday's review?" After a moment of silence, LV Yongchang took the initiative to change the subject. He was afraid that he could not help but tell the truth he knew. Hearing LV Yongchang's question, Guan Hualiang showed a faint smile on his face. Sure enough, he is still young. He couldn't help asking after just one night. He chuckled and said, "After you left yesterday, Dean Jiang and Dean Shan proposed to hold a meeting of the whole institute." LV Yongchang's face was normal. A meeting of the whole institute. It was expected. He didn't think that only a few professors could thoroughly understand this plan. "You don't seem surprised at all?" Guan Hualiang's eyes flashed with surprise. Could it be that the young man in front of him had already anticipated this result? LV Yongchang nodded calmly. "Of course I'm not surprised. Dean Shan is not a scholar who focuses on controlled nuclear fusion after all. It's normal for him to be unsure." Guan Hualiang looked at LV Yongchang with a strange expression. Although he knew that what LV Yongchang said was true, the scene of a young man in his early 20s talking to several professors about their main research directions was really magical. But this young man had the qualifications to talk. Ahem. If I tell you that the whole institute meeting passed your plan, and your plan was reported to the Zaya National Congress, would you be surprised? LV Yongchang's pupils shrank suddenly. "So fast? It was reported to the Zaya National Congress?" Exclamation mark. Chapter 12. All-in is a kind of wisdom. Professor Guan Hualiang, who got the answer from the expression on Lu Yongchang's face, laughed with satisfaction. He said cheerfully, "After yesterday's meeting, Dean Shan and academician Fang decided to submit your proposed controllable nuclear fusion plan to the Zaya Kingdom Parliament, and the Parliament will decide whether to follow your plan experiment." Academician Fang, Lu Yongchang's eyes moved slightly. Could it be Academician Fang Zhu, that academician of Xi National Academy of Sciences who single-handedly promoted the development of controllable nuclear fusion. It can be said that in the previous life, without the early preparation laid by academician Fang Zhu, Liu Yongchang would not have been able to successfully take over Ziguo's first controllable nuclear fusion experimental reactor. Sindao University has a nuclear physics laboratory. You should know this, right? Seeing Liu Yongchang nodding, Guan Hualiang picked up the teacup on the table, took a sip of strong tea and continued. Academician Fang Zhu is the person in charge of this nuclear physics laboratory. Liu Yongchang's eyes were slightly shaken. It's really him. It seems that his somewhat reckless operation this time really worked. On the second day after his rebirth, he established a relationship with Xia Kingdom's top scientist. Academician Fang Zhu is amazing. He is in the field of controllable nuclear fusion. Obviously, Professor Guan Hualiang admires academician Fang Zhu very much. Liu Yongchang looked at the expression of admiration on Guan Hualiang's face and couldn't laugh or cry for a moment. Others don't know how powerful academician Fang Zhu is. Doesn't he still know? Under the collective monopoly of all Western powers, he has single-handedly pushed Xia's controllable nuclear fusion technology to the level it has been for decades. This is academician Fang's greatest achievement in the future. Dingle bell. A rapid ringing of the phone interrupted Professor Guan Hualiang's interest. TSK. Professor Guan Hualiang frowned slightly, tutted softly and picked up the phone. Who is it? I'm Guan Hualiang. But the next moment, the expression on Guan Hualiang's face gradually became serious. What? Minister Hang is here. Okay, I get it. Liu Yongchang. He is with me now. Okay, I'll take him there right away. Guan Hualiang hung up the phone with a strange look on his face. Yongchang, you don't have anything else to do next, right? Without waiting for Liu Yongchang's reply, Guan Hualiang said to himself, forget it. Even if the sky falls, you have to come with me first. Liu Yongchang. Ahem. Professor, what happened? Guan Hualiang's eyes became more and more strange. Boss Liu, have you ever chatted with a ministerial member? Liu Yongchang's pupils shrank suddenly. Teach, Professor. Guan Hualiang glanced at Liu Yongchang meaningfully and said softly, it seems that the ITER incident has made the Xia State Council a little angry. I didn't expect that this matter could actually bring out the Minister of Science and Technology. Sandao University, Nuclear Physics Laboratory, Hang. Boo. Liu Yongchang will be here soon. Fang Zhu looked solemnly and said to Han Kaiming in front of him, Boo Hong, what did Congressman Li say about this matter? Han Kaiming glanced at Fang Zhu meaningfully. What are you talking about? ITER or Liu Yongchang's controllable nuclear fusion plan? Fang Zhu gritted his teeth slightly and said in a deep voice, both. Han Kaiming was silent for a while, seeming to consider his words. After a long time, he slowly said, Academician Fang, you have to believe that Ziguo will never kill the goose that lays the goose to lay the eggs for such a small profit. Fang Zhu's pupils shrank slightly. He got it, just as he thought. There was another hidden secret in the ITER matter. Yes, but we exited ITER. Doesn't this mean? Han Kaiming gently raised his hand and made a gesture, interrupting Academician Fang's unfinished words. Academician Fang, I believe that without ITER, our Xia country can independently develop controllable nuclear fusion technology. Since the founding of the country, our country, Xia, has never slowed down its development because of these little things, right? Fang Zhu's eyes trembled, and then he nodded slightly. What's more, if the plan proposed by Liu Yongchang can really achieve controllable nuclear fusion, I personally think that withdrawing from ITER may be a good thing. Can you understand me? Facing Han Kaiming's meaningful eyes, Fang Zhu suddenly had an idea in his heart. He figured it out. Once Liu Yongchang's plan is proven to be effective, Xia State, as a member state, will naturally need to share its technology with other member states. But now, Zhao has withdrawn from ITER. In this way, if the plan is effective, this controllable nuclear fusion technology can at least bring several years of technological leadership to Zhao country. By then, Zhao state's comprehensive national strength will be able to reach a high level. Only this also means that Zhao has put all his chips on this sophomore undergraduate student. Of course, if Yongchang knew these thoughts of senior officials, he would naturally respond with a smile. Studies a kind of wisdom. In his previous life, relying on his precise scientific research intuition, he more than once made heavy bets on scientific research directions that everyone was not optimistic about. This also allows Renlian's technological level to advance rapidly in just a few years. Underground city clusters large enough to accommodate billions of people. Interstellar spaceships under construction. All of this is the result of all-in point. However, in the most important gamble, Yongchang failed point as a result. Human civilization went to extinction. The door of the nuclear physics laboratory slowly opened. A somewhat hunched figure and a tall figure appeared at the door. Han Kaiming's eyes moved slightly, and he quickly turned his head to look at the tall figure. Just one glance. Han Kaiming nodded affirmatively in his heart. Not bad. Full of energy and spirit. A decent look. Minister Han, let me introduce you. This is Yongchang, a sophomore undergraduate student in the Department of Physics at Sandao University. This is Professor Guan Hualiang. Fang Zhu's voice sounded on the side. This is the Minister of Science and Technology of Zhao country. Han Kaiming, Guan Hualiang and Yongchang hurried forward to say hello. Looking at Yongchang's face without any timidity, Han Kaiming's eyes flashed with curiosity. Yongchang, right? You look as if you are not afraid of me. Yongchang's mouth corners slightly raised, and a faint smile appeared on his face. I haven't done anything wrong. Why should I be afraid of you? Faced with Yongchang's question, Han Kaiming was slightly stunned, and immediately clapped his hands and laughed. Good, student. Yongchang, we have verified your plan, and it can be said that it is very feasible. I think you should also know about ITER. For this matter, Chairman Lee specifically gave me a task. I wonder if you dare to take this task? Chapter 13 Chief Engineer. Yongchang fell into silence. Fang Zhu and Guan Hualiang on the side cast concerned glances at him. Under everyone's gaze, he nodded slightly. Certainly. Ha. Good. Han Kaiming laughed loudly and clapped softly. You are worthy of being a young man from Zhao Kingdom. You are responsible. The next moment, Han Kaiming changed the topic. From now on, you are no longer a sophomore at Sandao University. He is the chief engineer of Zhao State's controllable nuclear fusion project. Academician Fang Zhu is your deputy. There was silence in the laboratory. Fang Zhu, Guan Hualiang, and the researchers in the laboratory all cast their incredible eyes on Han Kaiming and Yongchang in front of them. What Han Gu just said? Are you serious? Yongchang was a little excited. Unexpectedly, the Zhao State Council at this time was even more reckless than he imagined. How dare he, a sophomore undergraduate, be allowed to preside over such a huge plan? Now, he can complete his plan faster. Perhaps considering Yongchang's age at this time. Han Kaiming looked a little solemn and added, Yongchang, you have to think about it carefully. The task assigned by Chairman Lee is to initially achieve controllable nuclear fusion within 1 year. At least, our own controllable nuclear fusion in Zhao State must achieve the same effect as ITER. Hearing this, Fang Zhu's pupils shrank suddenly. You know, Zhao State currently doesn't even have its own controllable nuclear fusion experimental reactor in the true sense. Can this mission really be accomplished? Different from the anxious expressions of everyone around him, a faint smile appeared on Yongchang's face. He nodded slightly. I accept this task. Furthermore, I can assure you that within 1 year, Zhao State will completely master the controllable nuclear fusion technology. What? Yongchang? What nonsense are you talking about? As Yongchang finished speaking, Fang Zhu and Guan Hualiang on the side exclaimed in surprise. Guan Hualiang even scolded Yongchang. Yongchang, such a major scientific research matter is not something you can just talk about casually. Why don't you apologize to the Han department quickly? As he spoke, Guan Hualiang lowered his head and apologized to Han Kaiming. "Han Bu, this kid Lu Yongchang is still a sophomore after all. Sometimes he can't speak clearly." Han Kaiming naturally didn't take this little thing to heart. He chuckled and waved his hand to interrupt Guan Hualiang's words. Then, he looked at the slightly immature Lu Yongchang in front of him with interest. "Do you know what you just meant, Lu?" Yongchang's expression remained calm. "Of course, Han Bu, I know what I'm talking about." Guan Hualiang reached out to cover his eyes and lamented deeply. What a sin. He even doubted whether he should bring Lu Yongchang here. Lu Yongchang didn't make any unnecessary explanations. He just took out a USB flash drive from his pocket and handed it to Han Kaiming. "Han Bu, if what I said is true, please take a look at the contents of the USB flash drive before making a decision." Han Kaiming raised his eyebrows slightly and reached out to take the USB flash drive handed over by Lu Yongchang. "Haha, I am becoming more and more interested in you. You should know the consequences of deceiving a ministerial member, right?" As he spoke, Han Kaiming turned his attention to Fang Zhu. "Academician Fang, please do me a favor and project the contents of the USB flash drive so that we can see what surprises he has brought for us." Fang Zhu stepped forward with a look of helplessness and took the USB flash drive from Han Kaiming's hand. When passing by Lu Yongchang, he sighed deeply. He had a hunch that Zhao Jiyuo had lost the bet. He even found it a little funny. Zhao Jiyuo, why would you place your bet on such a young boy? As for Lu Yongchang, he looked like an old god. The contents of the USB flash drive were the result of a long night of typing on the keyboard in his dormitory last night. There isn't much, just detailed drawings of a controllable nuclear fusion reactor. The workload was huge, but thanks to the potential he had been forced out of in his previous life, he managed to finish it. A few minutes later, a projector was brought over. As the projector was connected to the computer, Fang Zhu reached out and inserted the USB flash drive into the computer interface. The moment he saw the files in the USB flash drive, a flash of surprise flashed across Fang Zhu's face. At the same time, he subconsciously double-clicked the left mouse button to open the file. The next moment, a detailed drawing appeared on the snow-white wall. "This is..." Han Kaiming's pupils shrank suddenly. He looked at the drawings in front of him and muttered to himself. Not only Han Kaiming, but Fang Zhu and all the researchers in the laboratory were stunned on the spot, staring blankly at the drawings in front of them. As the person in charge of the nuclear physics laboratory, Fang Zhu immediately combined the drawing in front of him with the simple diagram on the blackboard. He swallowed slightly and asked in a hoarse voice, "Lu Yongchang, is this a detailed drawing of a controllable nuclear fusion reactor?" Lu Yongchang naturally smiled and nodded. "Of course. To be precise, this is a detailed drawing of the reactor. Now, do you believe what I say?" Han Kaiming also recovered from the shock and looked at Lu Yongchang in front of him, his eyes sparkling. "Good boy, did you do this by yourself?" Although he already had the answer in his heart, he still didn't believe it. Completing such a drawing alone, although he didn't know much about scientific research, he knew how much knowledge was needed to complete such a drawing. Under normal circumstances, this kind of drawing requires several people or even several teams to work together. LV Yongchang smiled and nodded, confirming Han Kaiming's question. Han Kaiming's eyes trembled slightly. Although he couldn't understand the drawing, he didn't know its authenticity and reliability. But he could see from the expressions of Fang Zhu and a group of researchers how amazing the drawing in front of him was. Fang Zhu on the side exhaled a breath of turbid air and looked at Lu Yongchang with complicated eyes. Just now, he thought it was a wrong decision to give such an important task to this young boy. But now, he decided to take back his words that he hadn't said yet. How can this be a young boy? This is simply not a human being. Fang Zhu burst out a swear word in his heart. In the entire history of Xiago, he had never heard of anyone who could complete a large equipment drawing single-handedly. Although this is only part of the controlled nuclear fusion reactor drawings, it is still amazing enough. How long did you spend on this drawing, Fang Zhu asked with a trembling voice. LV Yongchang glanced at Fang Zhu's face quietly and said with a wry smile, almost a year. Not bad. More than a year is acceptable. Bullshit. Fang Zhu's expression was a little distorted. Such a complicated thing. You only spent more than a year. Then, these researchers, who have spent nearly 10 years, are considered to have spent it on dogs? Question mark? Chapter 14 Stellarators and Tokamaks. Faced with Fang Zhu's doubts, Yongchang could only curl his lips slightly. This is what I have said more than anything else. If Fang Zhu knew that he spent a whole night drawing out this drawing, he would probably be on the dissecting table by now, right? It's just a drawing of a reactor, and it's still far from an entire controllable nuclear fusion reactor. Hearing Yongchang's words full of versatile connotations, Fang Zhu's mouth twitched twice. In his 45 years of life experience, Yongchang should be the best person he has ever seen, right? But soon, he noticed something strange. etc. This reactor. Fang Zhu's voice made everyone's hearts twitch. Han Kaiming couldn't help but look at him. Could it be that there is something wrong with the drawings of this reactor? This is not a tokamak device. Fang Zhu shouted in surprise. There was a hint of smile in the corner of Yongchang's eyes as expected of academician Fang. I really couldn't hide it from him. Of course this is not a tokamak device. This is a stellarator. Yongchang chuckled and said, if my calculations are correct, ITER's controllable nuclear fusion duration should be within 30 minutes, right? Fang Zhu's eyes moved slightly and nodded slightly. Yes, the latest experimental results show that the fusion reaction lasted for about 26 minutes. Could it be that? Haha. Yongchang smiled faintly. If nothing happens, ITER will touch the ceiling of the tokamak device soon. Fang Zhu's pupils shrank suddenly. You mean the tokamak device is not the optimal solution to achieve controllable nuclear fusion? Yongchang nodded and confirmed Fang Zhu's statement. How is it possible? If this is the case, wouldn't it mean that mankind has been moving on the wrong path for decades? Fang Zhu froze on the spot and muttered to himself. He couldn't accept what Yongchang said. Yongchang naturally understood Fang Zhu's complicated mood at this time. In the previous life, in order to break the monopoly, all the scientific research power of the Xia state was invested in the research and development of the tokamak device. However, no matter how hard we try, the controllable nuclear fusion cannot be maintained for more than 30 minutes. At that time, this was a fatal blow to the confidence of all scientific researchers. If Fang Zhu hadn't learned about the flaws of the tokamak device by chance, Xia Jiuo would have made a huge mistake on the road to achieving controllable nuclear fusion. How can I verify your statement? Fang Zhu is indeed the top scientist in Xia Kingdom. After a brief moment of confusion, he reacted immediately and asked Yongchang in a deep voice. Yongchang shrugged and said with an understatement, it's very simple. You just need to find a basic stellarator, use the material I deduced to build a reactor, and then ignite nuclear fusion. It will naturally be verified. Fang Zhu's eyes moved slightly. He remembered that there was indeed an outdated stellarator device in the laboratory that he had bought at a large price, etc. Han Kaiming's loud voice suddenly sounded from the side. Can anyone explain to me what the stellarator and tokamak device mean? As he spoke, Han Kaiming turned his attention to Yongchang. Seeing this scene, Guanhua Liang and Fang Zhu took a step back and handed the stage to Yongchang. Yongchang thought for a moment and then said, Hangbu, you should know that controllable nuclear fusion requires a strong magnetic field to restrain the nuclear fusion material, right? Seeing Han Kaiming nodding, Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. That's easy to explain. Otherwise, he still needs to explain the principles of controllable nuclear fusion from the beginning. Although it can be solved in a few words, it is still a bit troublesome. Simply put, the tokamak device's toroidal spiral magnetic cage generation requires plasma current, but the stellarator does not need it. It can directly generate a twisted toroidal magnetic cage through external coils. Then, is there any difference between the two? Don't they both produce magnetic fields? Han Kaiming showed a trace of confusion in his eyes. Crack. Yongchang lightly snapped his fingers. That's the point. In the tokamak device, the plasma current reaches tens of millions of amperes. Such a huge current will inevitably cause countless problems. For Example, distortion mode, magnetic surface tearing, magnetic island generation, etc. All of this reduces the ability to confine the plasma. The consequences range from a flammea to an explosion. While speaking, Yongchang made an explosive gesture. Han Kaiming nodded, as if understanding point, although he didn't understand the various professional terms spoken by Yongchang. He understood the last sentence. Will the tokamak explode if left alone? Han Kaiming looked at academician Fang Zhu standing next to him with a complicated look facing Han Kaiming's gaze. Fang Zhu could only nod helplessly and said, there is a possibility, but, so far, the tokamak device has not experienced such a serious failure. Not now, but what about in the future? Yongchang said calmly, when the fusion maintenance time is increased to 30 minutes, serious consequences may occur. Fang Zhu's body suddenly stiffened, and he cried out in surprise, you mean, the tokamak device will explode after 30 minutes of fusion? LV. Yongchang nodded with a complicated look. Yes, this is also the biggest trap of the tokamak device. Although the polar magnetic field formed by the plasma current makes the magnetic cage very simple, the high temperature and ultra-large current will eventually lead to some accidents. Fang Zhu suddenly realized, so that's it. What about the stellarator? Han Kaiming swallowed slightly and asked in a low voice. He suddenly felt that the sophomore student in front of him, with a young face, was just like an old professor who had been immersed in it for decades. Even Fang Zhu, in front of him, was like a student. Hearing Han Kaiming's question, LV Yongchang said lightly, the stellarator is simple. You just need to use the external coil to create a closed, twisted ring-shaped magnetic cage inside. Han Kaiming, so simple. Why didn't you use the stellarator before? Fang Zhu glanced at LV Yongchang unhappily and explained again. The difficulty of the stellarator is the manufacture of the external coil. First of all, the shape of the external coil is irregular, which is a major difficulty in manufacturing. On the other hand, to form a strong enough magnetic field, the material of the coil is preferably a superconducting coil, which increases the difficulty. After all, there is no breakthrough in room temperature superconducting technology. LV Yongchang's faint voice came from the side. What if I can solve the room temperature superconducting material? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Carbon Nanomaterials Laboratory. What? As Yongchang finished speaking, Fang Zhu's eyes widened slightly and he exclaimed, can you solve the problem of room temperature superconducting materials? Fang Zhu's reaction made Han Kaiming frown on the side. Normal temperature superconductivity. I remember, our country should have this technology, right? Last time I saw a report that a famous academician of the Academy of Sciences had made a breakthrough in room temperature superconducting technology. Fang Zhu glanced at Han Kaiming helplessly and said softly, Boo Hong, what you are talking about should be the paper published by academician Hu Changping in the journal Nature some time ago. Han Kaiming's eyes lit up slightly, and he nodded repeatedly. Yes, you have a good memory, academician Fang. I'm talking about the paper written by academician Hu Changping. What? Can't that technology be used? Fang Zhu had a bitter smile in his eyes and slowly shook his head. Although the superconducting material manufactured by academician Hu Changping achieves superconducting phenomenon at room temperature of 15 degrees Celsius, this actually has prerequisites. It is achieved under a pressure of 267 billion Pa, which is about 1 million times the standard tire pressure. What's more, the material used by Professor Hu Changping to produce superconductivity in the diamond pressure chamber is extremely small. It even needs to be expressed in the unit of measurement picoliter. Seeing the doubt flashing in Han Kaiming's eyes, Fang Zhu quickly added, picoliter is a unit of measurement, and 1 picoliter is about 10 carat minus 9 milliliters. Han Kaiming took a sharp breath. Now he understood completely. Such harsh conditions, so few materials, it is simply a fantasy to apply this technology to controllable nuclear fusion. Fang Zhu swallowed slightly and murmured to himself, so far, I have not heard of any country that has truly mastered this technology. Then, he took a deep breath, calmed down his mood, and spoke again, speaking decisively. A truly room temperature superconducting material needs to achieve superconductivity at room temperature and pressure. This difficulty is very huge. Han Kaiming frowned. When he heard Lu Yongchang's words, he was even a little excited. Lu Yongchang's understatement and determined look created an illusion for him. That is, room temperature superconducting technology is very simple. But now, under Fang Zhu's basin of cold water, Han Kaiming's somewhat heated mind gradually calmed down. He turned his head and looked at Lu Yongchang, who was standing in front of him. He frowned and asked, are you sure you can solve room temperature superconducting materials? The corners of Lu Yongchang's mouth raised slightly, and he nodded slowly but firmly. Yes, room temperature superconducting technology is difficult. But in his previous life, this technology had already been conquered. Moreover, the scientist who solved this difficult problem for Zhiyuo was none other than Lu Yongchang himself. After pondering for a moment, he slowly said, I need a standard carbon nanomaterials laboratory and a few helpers. If nothing else happens, give me a few days and I can put the results in front of you. Fang Zhu's eyes moved slightly, and he obviously learned some hidden information from Lu Yongchang's words. He looked at Lu Yongchang in surprise, and his voice suddenly rose an octave higher. Are you sure carbon nanomaterials can achieve room temperature superconductivity? Lu Yongchang was silent for a while, and he understood a message from Fang Zhu's curious eyes. How about you come and watch me do it, Fang Zhu? It's not impossible, perhaps. Realizing that he had exposed his intentions, Fang Zhu's eyes flashed with embarrassment. Ahem. I'm not curious, mainly because I'm worried that you are not familiar with the use of those experimental equipment. Lu Yongchang, Carbon Nanomaterials Laboratory, Sandaokao University. Lu, classmate. Lu, please see if this laboratory can meet your requirements. As he said this, Fang Zhu's eyes showed a bit of dissatisfaction. As an academician, this is the first time for him to be a guide for a sophomore undergraduate. Fang Zhu felt even more awkward when he thought that he might even become this undergraduate's deputy in the future. No, we have to think of a way. How about let Liu Jiang get this kid a professorship? It sounds better to say it this way. At least no one would say that he, a dignified academician, was working under an undergraduate student. The more Fang Zhu thought about it, the more reliable it became, and he immediately approved the proposal in his mind. Sneeze. Lu Yongchang, who was walking in front, suddenly sneezed. He turned his head and glanced at Fang Zhu behind him with a suspicious look on his face. I always felt that there was a chill coming from behind me just now. It shouldn't be Fang Zhu scolding him, right? Facing Lu Yongchang's meaningful gaze, Fang Zhu's expression suddenly froze. Then, he forced a forced smile on his face. Student Lu, please see if this laboratory is suitable. If it is not suitable, we may have to go farther away to find a better laboratory. Lu Yongchang turned back thoughtfully and looked at the instruments in the laboratory. After looking at it, Lu Yongchang showed a bit of disgust in his eyes. That's it. In his previous life, he wouldn't have even looked at a laboratory with this configuration. But now, why, just make do with it. Tony Stark could knock out Mark I with his bare hands in a cave, so he could certainly make room temperature superconducting materials in this backward laboratory. It's barely possible. LV Yongchang responded to Fang Zhu's question with a calm face. As for Fang Zhu, the moment he heard LV Yongchang's words, his eyes suddenly widened. Just barely. Do you know that this is the best carbon nanomaterial laboratory in Sandaokao University? I'm not exaggerating. This laboratory can at least rank in the top 10 in the current Xia country. LV Yongchang glanced at Fang Zhu, who was indignant beside him with a speechless face. Didn't you just say that if it doesn't work, we can change to a better laboratory? Fang Zhu, I was just being modest. Do you understand modesty? LV Yongchang raised his hands and said softly in a coaxing tone, okay, I take back what I said. This laboratory is very advanced and very good. Is it okay now? Fang Zhu. He swears that he has never been so speechless in his life. He followed Fang Zhu silently. He wants to take a good look at this sophomore undergraduate student. What is he capable of? It's not that he can't even recognize the name of the experimental instrument, right? Thinking of this, Fang Zhu's eyes flashed with a smile. You know, in this laboratory in Sandao, many experimental equipment have just been updated, not to mention LV Yongchang, an undergraduate student. Even he is a little unfamiliar with using them. Chapter 16. Is this also a talent? This scanning electron microscope is good. LV Yongchang's voice came from the front. It should be the latest model now, right? Fang Zhu suddenly raised his head and looked at LV Yongchang. Huh. This Fourier transform infrared spectrometer is also new, right? And not bad. I said the wrong thing just now. I didn't expect that. There are still some good things in this laboratory. Fang Zhu's eyes showed a bit of surprise. The name of each instrument was correct. Even the latest machines. LV Yongchang accurately reported its name. Do you know these instruments? Fang Zhu hesitated for a moment and asked. LV Yongchang glanced at Fang Zhu with a strange look on his face. Of course I know. If I don't even know the instruments, what am I doing here? Fang Zhu's breath suddenly choked. What he said made sense, and he couldn't refute it. But this is too contrary to common sense, right? The equipment in this laboratory, let alone undergraduates, I guess most graduate students can't recognize it all. How did LV Yongchang, a sophomore undergraduate student, recognize it? As if seeing Fang Zhu's doubts, LV Yongchang chuckled and explained, I have read many papers, so I naturally understand these instruments. Fang Zhu looked a little strange. But at least it is a reasonable explanation. Yongchang, let me ask you a very important question first. Fang Zhu's eyes flashed with some entanglement. Can you really use these instruments? Or have you used these instruments? LV Yongchang shook his head without hesitation. Of course not. Academician Fang, I'm just a sophomore undergraduate student. How can I get in touch with these high-end instruments? Fang Zhu was immediately anxious. Then, you still told Minister Hong. LV Yongchang smiled and interrupted Fang Zhu's words. However, I know how to use these instruments, so don't worry. As he said, LV Yongchang turned his head to look at an instrument next to him and opened his mouth to tell its detailed usage process. Listening to the error-free usage process from LV Yongchang, Fang Zhu was stunned. After a long time, he asked with difficulty, is this also what you learned from reading papers? LV Yongchang nodded and cast a strange look at Fang Zhu. Of course. What else? Fang Zhu. He took a deep breath and rubbed his stiff face hard with his hand. Okay, maybe there are really geniuses in the world. When do we start? Fang Zhu chose to change the subject. LV Yongchang looked at the researchers in white coats waiting at the door of the laboratory and raised his eyebrows slightly. Now, looking at LV Yongchang's smooth operation, Fang Zhu fell into silence again. Is this also what you learned from the paper? Didn't you say you haven't touched the experimental equipment? Fang Zhu looked at LV Yongchang in front of him with a crazy look. In just half an hour, LV Yongchang had operated 3 instruments in succession. Originally, in Fang Zhu's imagination, LV Yongchang should be a pure theoretical worker. That is to say, LV Yongchang will make many mistakes when he is actually operating. This situation is very common. After all, there is a huge gap between theory and actual operation. For material technology, a small operational error will lead to a huge difference in the final result. Even Fang Zhu has been prepared to wipe LV Yongchang's ass, but the scene that happened half an hour ago completely shattered Fang Zhu's worldview. LV Yongchang's series of operations were smooth, just like an old timer in the laboratory. Not only did he not make any mistakes, he even noticed a lot of key points that Fang Zhu didn't notice. Yes, I really haven't touched experimental equipment in my life. LV Yongchang said lightly with a faint smile on his lips. That's right. These so-called latest experimental equipment are all left over from his previous life. Fang Zhu had a look of ashamed. Then you, academician. Fang, sometimes talent is still very important. While Speaking, LV Yongchang reached out and gently patted Fang Zhu's shoulder. You know, right, Fang Zhu. After finally overcoming his inner shock, Fang Zhu asked LV Yongchang curiously, why did you choose carbon nanomaterials to achieve room temperature superconductivity? Hearing Fang Zhu's question, LV Yongchang slowly stopped his work and whispered, when two layers of parallel graphene are stacked at an angle of about 1.1 degrees, a superconducting effect will occur. Fang Zhu's pupils shrank slightly. Is this true? LV Yongchang smiled and said, you can try it. Aren't there so many idle instruments next to it? A few hours later. Oh my god, it's true. Fang Zhu looked at the instrument screen in front of him with a shocked face. Yongchang, how did you discover this phenomenon? LV Yongchang leaned over to operate the equipment on the experimental table and said softly, I calculated it. I haven't seen the actual scene. Fang Zhu was speechless. How dare you say that? If you haven't seen it, then what if I'm wrong? Doesn't this mean a total loss? That's right. LV Yongchang straightened up, his eyes flashing with confidence. I have confidence in myself, Fang Zhu. For some reason, since meeting LV Yongchang, Fang Zhu felt that the time he was speechless had obviously increased a lot. 3 days later, LV Yongchang and Fang Zhu stared at the display screen of the scanning electron microscope point on the screen. There was a cylindrical material. Yongchang, is this what you said? Carbon nanotube? Ah. You sure this carbon nanotube can achieve room temperature superconductivity? Fang Zhu's face was full of doubt. It's no wonder he doubted, because he basically did nothing in these 3 days in addition to helping out and running errands. The really important operations were all completed by LV Yongchang alone. As an academician who has been leading a team for many years, I have to say that this is really an extremely novel experience. Facing Fang Zhu's doubts, LV Yongchang did not speak, but operated the microscope with a serious look and changed several observation angles and succession point. Only after seeing the standard nanotube structure on the screen did LV Yongchang slowly let out a long sigh of relief. That's right, this is it. After saying that, LV Yongchang estimated the time, with a bit of regret in his eyes. What a pity. At the current manufacturing speed, we won't see the results until at least tomorrow. Fang Zhu glanced at LV Yongchang's regretful profile with a strange look. Is this a pity? It took 4 days to produce an experimental sample of room temperature superconductivity. Isn't that fast enough? You know, the time it takes to come up with any new material is calculated in years. Chapter 17. 10 centimeters of black wire. Early the next morning, Fang Zhu opened the door of the laboratory with a pair of panda eyes looking at the busy researchers in the laboratory. Fang Zhu's eyes showed a trace of confusion. Where is LV Yongchang? He hurriedly pulled a researcher who passed by and asked, LV, where is LV Yongchang? The researcher showed a little surprise in his eyes, and then pointed to the depths of the laboratory. Professor Liu has arrived a long time ago. When we came, he was busy in the laboratory. I don't know since when LV Yongchang became Professor Liu in the mouths of these researchers. Fang Zhu was too lazy to correct their address after all. After seeing LV Yongchang's skilled and confident scientific research methods, let alone these researchers, even Fang Zhu felt a little admiration from the bottom of his heart. If he didn't know LV Yongchang's identity, he would probably mistakenly think that LV Yongchang's true identity was a senior professor. After retracting his reverie in his heart, Fang Zhu hurriedly turned his head and glanced at the wall clock. 6:45. He was secretly shocked. Sure enough, everyone's success is not accidental. Fang Zhu sighed in his heart while speeding up his pace to walk deeper into the laboratory. Perhaps because he heard the approaching footsteps, LV Yongchang moved his eyes away from the device in front of the laboratory table. Seeing the dark circles on Fang Zhu's face, he was stunned. What's wrong with you, Fang Zhu smiled and waved his hand, saying nonchalantly, oh, it's okay. I just couldn't sleep last night. Or, you go to rest for a while? LV Yongchang said with concern. Anyway, there is no task today. Just test the superconducting properties of carbon nanotubes. Fang Zhu's eyes flashed with excitement, and he directly burst out with swear words. Rest? My dark circles are caused by this matter, and you still want me to rest. Where is the wire? Let me see it. Seeing Academician Fang's excited look, LV Yongchang couldn't help laughing. He turned sideways and let the device on the laboratory table out. A glass cover with a diameter of 30 centimeters. Fang Zhu hurriedly took 2 steps forward and came to the side of the glass cover. Through the glass cover, he clearly saw a black wire about 10 centimeters long connected to 2 metal probes. The wire was very thin. With the naked eye, it was almost as thin as a hair. Fang Zhu stretched out his hand, bent his fingers, and gently tapped the glass cover. Is it a vacuum inside, Lu? Yongchang shook his head and denied. Of course not. It's just a small clean room now. You don't want to see some dust affecting the experimental results, right? But soon, he opened his mouth again and added, to be precise, it's not a vacuum environment yet. As he spoke, Lu Yongchang pointed to the vacuuming instrument next to him. Fang Zhu raised his eyebrows slightly. This sentence contains a lot of information. Could it be that this material can also achieve superconductivity in a vacuum environment? LV Yongchang reached out and took a piece of A4 paper full of words from the experimental table and handed it to Fang Zhu. According to my calculations, the superconducting wire composed of carbon nanotubes is extremely stable, and the normal operating temperature ranges between -50 degrees Celsius and 80 degrees Celsius. Fang Zhu's eyes suddenly lit up, and he quickly asked, what about the air pressure within 2 standard atmospheres? Hearing LV Yongchang's answer, Fang Zhu took a breath of cold air. Good guy. If it is really as LV Yongchang calculated, this superconducting wire composed of carbon nanotubes can be used in almost any corner of the earth, even in the deep sea with extremely high pressure. Only a section of pressure-resistant pipeline needs to be installed. This also means that the power industry in Xiago will usher in earth-shaking changes. Yongchang, do you know what you have done? Thinking of a series of changes that will happen in the future. Fang Zhu stood there blankly, muttering to himself. A smile appeared in the corner of LV Yongchang's eyes, but he didn't say anything. He naturally knew what this wire meant. Although these technologies are somewhat advanced for the current Xia country, it is far from enough to deal with future disasters. After admiring the carbon nanotube wire on the experimental table, Fang Zhu said solemnly, start the test, knowing that the first test of the room temperature superconducting coil was about to begin. All the researchers in the laboratory put down their unfinished scientific research tasks and gathered around LV Yongchang. This is a chance to witness history. No one would want to miss this opportunity. LV Yongchang swallowed slightly, stretched out his hand carefully, and connected the metal probes at both ends of the wire to the testing instrument. Although he was very confident in the materials he made, but who can say for sure about materials science? Perhaps there was a little accident in the manufacturing process, causing the inclination of the carbon nanotube to change by 1 degree, or some other reason. It can be said that as long as there is a slight mistake, the manufacturing of this room temperature superconducting material will fail. While he was thinking about all sorts of things in his mind, he turned on the switch of the test instrument. Start powering on. A number appeared on the screen of the test instrument. Resistance value 0. Success. A hint of excitement flashed in LV Yongchang's eyes. Increase the current a little more. Fang Zhu's excited voice came from the side. LV Yongchang immediately turned the knob and slowly increased the current. When they saw the resistance value on the instrument screen without any fluctuation, all the researchers in the laboratory exclaimed softly. Unlike the researchers around him, LV Yongchang's expression was still very solemn. The test is not over yet. He still needs to test the performance of this material in a low pressure environment. LV Yongchang winked at Fang Zhu on the side. Fang Zhu nodded gently and turned on the vacuum pump on the side. With a low humming sound, the air in the glass cover was gradually sucked out. Seeing the value on the barometer slowly decrease, even LV Yongchang was sweating. You know, superconducting materials react extremely violently to environmental changes. In the past, superconducting materials, once the temperature or pressure changes slightly, will directly lead to the disappearance of the superconducting effect under the action of this strong current. Once the superconducting effect of the wire disappears, even if the resistance value is very small, it will instantly generate extremely strong heat. The consequence is naturally to fuse the only room temperature superconducting wire in the world. A few dozen seconds later, looking at the calm resistance curve on the screen of the test instrument, LV Yongchang finally showed a bright smile on his face. He gently wiped the sweat from his forehead, raised his right hand high, and shouted loudly, "Success, we succeeded." Fang Zhu on the side excitedly turned off the instruments one by one, rushed to LV Yongchang excitedly, and patted him on the shoulder vigorously. "Good job, we have the room temperature superconducting technology. Academician Fang, we should prepare for the transformation of the stellarator." LV Yongchang quickly pulled himself out of the joy of success and said in a deep voice. Fang Zhu nodded excitedly. "I will notify the staff of the laboratory right now and start the transformation of the stellarator this afternoon." Chapter 18. Transforming the Stellar Simulator. Half a month later, in the nuclear physics laboratory of Sindao University. LV Yongchang sat quietly in an office assigned to him. He frowned slightly, and the pen in his hand quickly calculated some formulas on the A4 paper in front of him. Half a month later, the room temperature superconducting wire made of carbon nanotube material has been completed. It has to be said that the power of the state machine is extremely huge. The moment he learned about the breakthrough in room temperature superconducting material technology, Hangbu personally issued a manufacturing order. Although LV Yongchang has a perfect carbon nanotube preparation plan, but because of the manufacturing process problems at this time in the entire Xia country, only Xiasheng Group, which is responsible for the manufacture of high precision equipment, can mass produce superconducting wires that meet the standards as for those foreign companies. Han Kaiming is not a fool. If he really gives them the order, it is estimated that it will not take a few days for several Western powers to master room temperature superconducting technology, stimulated by a large amount of funds and administrative orders. Xiasheng Group's carbon nanotube wire manufacturing capacity continues to expand. In just half a month, room temperature superconducting wires worth hundreds of millions of yuan were transported to the nuclear physics laboratory of Sindao University. At this time, an old-style stellarator device has been installed in the nuclear physics laboratory. However, the spiral wires on the outer layer of the stellarator have been removed by the staff. As for the inner cavity of the stellarator, it was replaced with a newly manufactured inner cavity a few days ago. The material used for the new inner cavity is naturally the new material deduced by LV Yongchang on the blackboard. According to material tests, the inner cavity of the reactor composed of this new material can perfectly resist the high temperature of hundreds of millions of degrees when the nuclear fusion reaction occurs. In addition, when Fang Zhu was conducting material tests, he was surprised to find that this new material can also perfectly resist the radiation damage caused by nuclear fusion. While Fang Zhu was surprised, he also felt a little admiration for LV Yongchang in his heart. Such a powerful material was actually deduced on paper by a sophomore undergraduate. Fang Zhu couldn't help feeling a little ashamed. At his age, he really lived a dog's life. LV Yongchang naturally didn't know what Fang Zhu was thinking. At this time, he was sitting in the office and carefully checking the size parameters of the stellarator. According to Fang Zhu, this stellarator was originally used by the researching country Diaz for why it was no longer used. It naturally returned to the original question. The difficulty of manufacturing a stellarator is extremely huge. Unlike the regular spiral shape of the tokamak, the shape of the stellarator is just like a messy ball of wool. The position of each wire needs to be carefully calculated to ensure that it can generate a magnetic field at a specific angle. At this time, LV Yongchang was completing this work. He needed to calculate the precise position of each superconducting wire based on the size parameters of the stellarator to ensure that a closed, twisted annular magnetic cage can be formed in the inner cavity of the stellarator to constrain the extremely high temperature plasma. LV Yongchang gently put down the pen in his hand and exhaled a long breath. After several days of calculation, He finally achieved gratifying results according to his calculations. These superconducting coils can provide a strong magnetic field with a strength of up to 100T. This will be the most powerful artificial magnetic field on Earth. This 100T strong magnetic field can perfectly confine the fusion plasma of hundreds of millions of degrees in the center of the reactor cavity. He stood up, slowly walked to the door of the office, and gently turned the door handle. The sound of the office door opening attracted Fang Zhu's attention. "Well, have you completed the calculation task?" Seeing the relaxed expression on LV Yongchang's face, Fang Zhu's eyes flashed with surprise, and he asked immediately. "It's only been a few days, at most. It's just a little more than 3 days, right? Such a complex calculation task, LV Yongchang can complete it in 3 days." Fang Zhu didn't believe it from the bottom of his heart. As if seeing the doubt in Fang Zhu's eyes, LV Yongchang chuckled and said, "Of course it's done." As he spoke, he handed a stack of A4 paper in his hand to Fang Zhu. "Or, you check it." Fang Zhu took the A4 paper handed over by LV Yongchang with a surprised look. When Fang Zhu saw the dense calculation formulas on it, he swallowed slightly. Although he didn't want to admit it, he seemed to be unable to understand the calculation method on it. "Ahem. I believe your calculation results." Fang Zhu returned the stack of A4 paper to LV Yongchang with a serious face. "How about, let Cheyenne-1 verify your calculation results?" LV Yongchang was stunned for a moment, nodded slightly, and agreed to Fang Zhu's proposal. Regarding controlled nuclear fusion, all research resources are given priority to the Sandaokao Nuclear Physics Laboratory. As soon as the application was submitted, the use time of Cheyenne-1 was allocated. Fang Zhu carefully entered each result calculated by LV Yongchang into the computer, and then Cheyenne-1 performed the calculation. At this time, the role of the supercomputer was fully revealed. In just half an hour, the calculation results appeared in front of Fang Zhu and LV Yongchang. Success. The release of the superconducting wire layout plan means that the transformation plan of the stellarator has reached the final step. Coil holders at specific angles are installed outside the stellarator. These brackets can hold the coil in place. After all, for the stellarator, once the position of the external superconducting coil shifts even a little bit, it means a disaster. Once the internal annular magnetic cage is destroyed, the plasma with hundreds of millions of degrees will directly contact the surface of the inner cavity. I believe no one wants to see such consequences. Therefore, when completing the final modification of the stellarator, both Lu Yongchang and Fang Zhu were very alert, fearing that there would be some minor mistakes. 3 days later, the renovation work of the old stellarator is completely completed. "Yongchang, when will we start the first ignition experiment?" Fang Zhu's voice sounded from the side. Unconsciously, Fang Zhu regarded Lu Yongchang as his superior. Before every research decision, he would first ask Lu Yongchang's opinion. "That's it now." Lu Yongchang's eyes flashed. He looked away from the calculation A4 paper on his desk and said in a deep voice, "Academician Fang, please report it. This afternoon, we will start the first ignition experiment." As Fang Zhu applied to Hankeiming for the first ignition experiment, some changes also occurred in Sandaokao University. Dozens of soldiers from the special forces entered Sandaokao University in civilian clothes, and all the main roads leading to the nuclear physics laboratory were blocked. Even on some high-rise buildings near the nuclear physics laboratory, snipers have already set up sniper rifles and observation equipment in advance. It is no exaggeration to say that even a bird cannot fly safely through the nuclear physics laboratory at this time. All this is to ensure that the controllable nuclear fusion experiment is not interfered by any external unknown factors. Chapter 19 Ignition. Naturally, the changes within Sandaokao University cannot be hidden from some thoughtful people. What's going on? So why are these roads closed? Several boys were walking in Sandaokao University with depression written all over their faces. Could it be that there's a big shot in the school? A boy looked at the blocked road and made a guess. Another boy shook his head slowly and said in a deep voice, "It's probably not a big shot. I looked at the forum just now, and it seems that all the roads leading to the nuclear physics laboratory are blocked." "What? Nuclear physics laboratory? Are you saying there are going to be some nuclear tests there?" The Boy nodded solemnly. I wonder if you have heard the news. The Nuclear Physics Laboratory of Sandaocal University has been conducting research related to controllable nuclear fusion, coupled with the news from ITER some time ago. Do you think it's possible that the Nuclear Physics Laboratory is conducting controlled nuclear fusion experiments? This guess is obviously much more reliable than the previous one. Hiss. If this is really the case, wouldn't it mean that my country, Zaya, will soon master controllable nuclear fusion? Hearing the words of the classmates next to him, the boy who made the guess rolled his eyes angrily. How is that possible? This is controllable nuclear fusion. I guess this is an experiment. Last time I heard my mentor say that it will take at least several years before controllable nuclear fusion is truly mature. At the same time, inside the Nuclear Physics Laboratory of Sandaocal University, everyone, cheer up, check the working status of each component of the stellarator. If there are no problems, prepare to power on and start the first fusion test. Following Yongchang's order, the researchers in the laboratory came to their workstations one after another and began to conduct investigation work. The cooling system is normal, the laser generator is working, the superconducting coil is in good condition. As reports came one after another, the expressions on the faces of Yongchang and Fang Zhu gradually became serious when the last inspection work was completed. Yongchang's eyes flashed with excitement, and he gave the order firmly, start powering on. The researcher on the side pulled the switch, and a low hum slowly sounded, and an extremely powerful current instantly passed through the superconducting coil outside the stellarator. Magnetic field strength. Yongchang asked loudly. A researcher responsible for monitoring the magnetic field strength responded loudly. The current magnetic field strength is 50 T. Yongchang nodded slightly. The magnetic field strength of 50 T is enough. After all, this is just a test, not the actual start of controlled nuclear fusion. Then, the first ignition experiment of controllable nuclear fusion starts now. As he spoke, Yongchang reached out and pressed a few buttons on the computer in front of him. A little deuterium-tritium gas mixture is injected into the reactor. The next moment, the heating device starts. Under the operation of the heating device, the deuterium-tritium mixed gas will be heated to extremely high temperatures until it completely turns into a plasma state. The plasma deuterium and tritium mixture will be firmly constrained in its orbit by the strong magnetic field inside the stellarator. Countless parameters flashed on the computer screen in front of him, and various colorful curves and numbers jumped up and down in Yongchang's eyes, forming a beautiful picture. Okay, get ready to light the fire. Yongchang shouted in a deep voice. Fang Zhu on the side swallowed slightly and pressed a button on the console in front of him. The next moment, an extremely high intensity laser shined directly on the plasma deuterium tritium mixture. Boom. The curve on the temperature sensor instantly drew a beautiful curve and began to climb upward at a slope of nearly 90 degrees in just a few seconds. The temperature of the plasma deuterium and tritium mixture reached hundreds of millions of degrees Celsius. The fusion fire is lit. Nuclear fusion has begun. At extremely high temperatures, a deuterium atom and a tritium atom react to produce a helium atom and a neutron. In this process, a huge amount of energy is released. The temperature has reached critical point. A large number of neutrons detected. A researcher looked excited and shouted in a hurry. The eyes of everyone present moved slightly. As professionals, they all understood the hidden meaning of this sentence. The nuclear fusion reaction has already occurred in the inner cavity of the stellarator in front of us. Looking at the extremely stable data on the computer screen, Fang Zhu's eyes showed a bit of excitement. We succeeded, perhaps. Because of being too excited, Fang Zhu's face turned red and his lips trembled slightly. In comparison, Yongchang's reaction was much duller. I saw the corners of his mouth raise slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his face. After all, it was just an ignition experiment. Because this is just an ignition experiment, the amount of deuterium and tritium gas is not very large. After a few minutes, the fusion fuel was exhausted, and the fusion reaction in the reactor slowly stopped. Yongchang's eyes moved slightly, and he immediately shouted loudly, quick, check the status of the stellarator. Now is not the time to be happy. Several Researchers lowered their heads and looked at the computer screen in front of them. The cooling system is in good condition and the external temperature of the stellarator is currently stable. The first reports came from a distance point. Yongchang asked in a deep voice, "What's the outside temperature now?" 0.25 degrees Celsius. Yongchang nodded with satisfaction. It appears that the cooling equipment is in good working order. The next second, he turned to the researcher on the other side and asked loudly, "How is the condition of the reactor?" The reactor is in good condition, and no radiation damage has been detected. Only then did Yongchang reveal a bright smile on his face. The first stage of controlled nuclear fusion has been a complete success. The next thing to consider is a control system for controllable nuclear fusion. And the selection of power generation devices. Is it to continue the glorious tradition of mankind, boiling water, or is it another more advanced solution? These questions circled back and forth in Yongchang's mind. Crack. A hand slapped him hard on the shoulder. Yongchang trembled slightly and woke up from his thoughts. Turning around, he saw Fang Zhu looking at him with a smile on his face. "I said the ignition was successful. What are you still thinking about here? Come on. I'm treating you tonight. I'll take you out for a nice meal to celebrate." That night. A piece of news was quietly launched on the official website of Sandaokou University. Warm congratulations to Sandaokou Nuclear Physics Laboratory for successfully operating controlled nuclear fusion. At the same time, the hot searches for scarves have also been quietly changed. SYNOPSIS' first controlled nuclear fusion experiment was a complete success. In just a moment, countless netizens who were eating melon late at night crowded into the comment area. "What the hell? Really? Is this successful? I remember that SYNOPSIS seemed to have just quit ITER. Could it be that the rumor is true and SYNOPSIS really stole relevant information? Kill the one upstairs. Isn't this killing the goose that lays the egg? I don't believe SYNOPSIS would do such a stupid thing. Not to mention these unlucky things. I believe that even without ITER, we can develop our own controllable nuclear fusion device." Chapter 20. The Other Side of the Ocean. Across the ocean, the United States. Inside the Oval Office of the President. Inside the White House. A Chinese newspaper lies quietly on the President's desk. The big red characters on the newspaper are particularly bright against the black and white background. Good news. The controlled nuclear fusion ignition of the Sandaokou University Nuclear Physics Laboratory was successfully ignited. Bang! There was a sound of slamming on the table. The presidential desk, made of mahogany, trembled violently. FXXK. A fat middle-aged man with blonde hair sat behind his desk. His face flushed, and he shouted sternly, "Damn it, Anthony, can you explain this to me?" Hearing the angry scolding of the middle-aged man in front of him, the man named Anthony took a step forward, shrugged and said nonchalantly, "Sir Albert, I don't think there is anything to explain." "What? There's nothing to explain? Is this the reply you gave me as the Minister of Defense?" The muscles on both sides of the blonde middle-aged man's cheeks trembled slightly, and even his blonde bangs trembled twice. "Tell me, Anthony, what did you tell me then? As long as SYNOPSIS is kicked out of the ITER project, we can always maintain a leading position in controllable nuclear fusion." Albert vividly imitated Anthony's tone of voice. "If I remember correctly, this is your original talk." Anthony looked at this scene with an ugly expression. "What? Now, Anthony, tell me, what is written in this newspaper?" Albert angrily picked up the newspaper on the table and threw it on the floor in front of Anthony. The corners of Anthony's mouth twitched slightly. He lowered his head and read the newspaper carefully. Then he said in a deep voice, "Your Excellency, I can't read Chinese." Obviously, Anthony's reply completely exceeded Albert's expectations. Albert opened his mouth slightly and looked at Anthony in front of him in disbelief. "Anthony, you, okay, very good." Albert even laughed out of anger. "You can't read Chinese? Then let me tell you what is written on it." The newspaper said that SYNOPSIS state has successfully conducted a controlled nuclear fusion ignition experiment. "Do you understand?" Anthony's face was expressionless, and he nodded slightly. "Yes, so." Albert sneered. "Is this your reply to me?" Anthony took a deep breath. Your Excellency, I hope you will take a good look at this report before speaking, instead of complaining directly to me. As one of the ITER member states, Xia has naturally mastered some controllable nuclear fusion technology. In my opinion, there is basically no need to worry about this so-called ignition experiment. They are still far away from truly mastering controllable nuclear fusion. The expression on Albert's face softened a bit point after calming down. Some doubts flashed in his eyes, and he asked again, "You mean Anthony?" Stretched out his hand and pointed behind him. "Your Excellency, please let professionals explain these professional knowledge to you." With that said, Anthony turned sideways and said behind him, "Professor Collins, now is your time." An old man with grey hair walked forward slowly on crutches and saluted Albert respectfully. "Hello, Mr. President." Albert frowned slightly. After pondering for a moment, he asked softly, "If I remember correctly, you should be the leading professor who was sent to ITER a few years ago, right, Professor?" Collins' eyes flashed with excitement. "Yes, Mr. President, I didn't expect you to still remember me." Albert nodded slightly and said with a slightly arrogant expression, "What, do you want to explain something to me, Professor?" Collins nodded quickly and then said with a somewhat hurried look, "Your Excellency, President, I think you don't need to worry about this news about Xia country at all." Albert's eyes moved slightly and he gestured for him to continue while he adjusted himself to a more comfortable sitting position. "I have read reports from Xia GUO. The controllable nuclear fusion device they use this time is a stellarator, not a traditional tokamak device." Hearing this, Albert frowned tightly. He was somewhat impressed by the tokamak device. After all, a large part of the tokamak device in the ITER plan was manufactured at the expense of the United States. But what the hell is that stellarator? He looked at Professor Collins in front of him with some confusion. "Professor, the stellarator you just mentioned." Seeing the doubt in Albert's eyes, Professor Collins suddenly realized, "Your Excellency, you don't need to know what a stellarator is. You just need to know that the stellarator device is an equipment that has been eliminated by us. The reason for elimination is simple. It is too expensive to build and too difficult to manufacture, which can easily lead to failure of nuclear fusion. I can probably guess the origin of the stellarator at Sandaokal University in Xia State. It should be a nearly scrapped stellarator from country D a few years ago." Albert looked at Professor Collins in disbelief. "Are you sure? A scrapped stellarator can also successfully ignite nuclear fusion?" Obviously, Albert did not quite believe what Professor Collins said. Professor Collins nodded vigorously. "Your Excellency, President, you should know that the quality of products made by people from country D is always good. I guess this is also the reason why Xiago was able to succeed. But this outdated thing is definitely not reliable, so you can see that Xiago's controlled nuclear fusion can only last for 2 minutes, perhaps. You don't know that the current ITER tokamak device can extend the controlled nuclear fusion time to 26 minutes. Professor Collins' words warmed up Albert's stiff face a lot. "Then, in your opinion, Xiago's research on controlled nuclear fusion, impossible. Xiago will never be able to complete the research on controlled nuclear fusion on the stellarator." Professor Collins said without hesitation. "The stellarator has long been proven to be a thankless road." Hearing this, Albert finally smiled. "As long as Xiago cannot master controlled nuclear fusion, the United States position will not be shaken. It's just, Mr. President, there is something I want to talk to you about." Professor Collins' eyes flashed with some hesitation. "Speak." Perhaps because he had just received good news, Albert nodded with a faint smile on his face. "Mr. President, the United States should also build its own controlled nuclear fusion device." Professor Collins said nervously, "We can't always share experimental results with ITER. In the next experiment, ITER is going to extend the controlled nuclear fusion time to more than 30 minutes. If it succeeds, perhaps the era of human beings mastering controlled nuclear fusion is coming, and we in the United States should prepare in advance." Chapter 21 Meeting with Counselor Lee. Professor Collins' words made President Albert's face condense. He was silent for a long time and slowly said, "This is indeed a problem. Like Xiago, the United States currently does not have a truly controlled nuclear fusion device of its own. Albert's muttering made Professor Collins' eyes suddenly brighten. He quickly agreed. You are right, Mr. President. We need a fusion reactor that truly belongs to us. Albert pondered for a moment. Give me a time, Professor. Congress. If there is no exact time, there is no way to approve it. Facing Albert's meaningful eyes, Professor Collins hesitated for a while. Maybe about 10 years. Albert frowned instantly. 10 years. Professor, are you kidding me? Don't talk about me. Congress will never agree to this plan, Professor. Collins laughed and hurriedly said again. 5 years. I believe that within 5 years, the fusion reactor belonging to the Americans will appear. Albert nodded with satisfaction. At the same time, within the first ring of the capital of Xiaguo in the building that could not be found on the map, Han Kaiming knocked on the door of the office again with a serious face. Come in. Han Kaiming took a deep breath and calmed down his agitated mood. Then, he stretched out his hand and pushed open the slightly heavy wooden door. Chairman Lee. Han Kaiming bowed his head slightly and saluted the old man behind the desk. Seeing Han Kaiming, the old man's face was full of smiles. He slowly stood up, walked to Han Kaiming's side, and nodded. Not bad, not bad. This is a good job. Han Kaiming's slightly serious face also showed a smile. He nodded gently and whispered, I didn't expect that Liu Yongchang was so powerful, Counselor. Lee's eyes flashed with a sigh. Yes, I have read the report you sent over the past 2 days. The next second, Counselor Lee changed the subject and said seriously, Kaiming, what do you think of Liu Yongchang? Han Kaiming's pupils shrank suddenly. Counselor Lee's words made him vaguely guess. Could it be that Counselor Lee was going to? He did not dare to hide it, and immediately told everything he saw. After listening to Han Kaiming's words, Counselor Lee nodded thoughtfully. It seems that this kid is very much to your taste. I plan to train him to be a new generation of leaders. What do you think? Han Kaiming took a deep breath and then said in a deep voice, Counselor Lee, I think Liu Yongchang can take on this responsibility. Counselor Lee showed a satisfied smile on his face. In that case, bring him to my place in 2 days. I want to meet him in person. What? Counselor Lee wants to see me. Even Liu Yongchang, who was used to seeing all kinds of big figures in his previous life, couldn't help but be a little surprised at this time. He didn't expect that Counselor Lee would notice him so quickly. But what's the reason? It's just a controlled nuclear fusion ignition experiment, which is not enough for Counselor Lee to notice him. After thinking for a long time without getting an answer, LV Yongchang showed a flattering smile on his face and approached. Han Kaiming, Minister Han, do you know why Counselor Lee wants to see me? Han Kaiming glanced at LV Yongchang, who was grinning in front of him. With some helplessness he wondered from the bottom of his heart, why was LV Yongchang not afraid of him at all? After all, he was also a counselor at the ministerial level. Although he was a little puzzled, he still told LV Yongchang everything he knew. Counselor Lee means to train you to be a leader of the young generation. You have to be prepared. After the voice fell, not only LV Yongchang, but also Fang Zhu on the side suddenly shrank his pupils. LV Yongchang restrained the smile on his face a little and asked in a deep voice, Minister Han, did Counselor Lee really say that? No. Lies. Hearing Han Kaiming's decisive response, LV Yongchang's eyes flashed with excitement. If it really works, then he will have more confidence in the future disaster. Originally in his plan, he needed about 3 years to achieve the current achievement point, but now, in just less than a month, he has completed all the previous plans. Minister Han, when are we going to leave? Han Kaiming smiled and glanced at the young boy in front of him. Tomorrow, I will take you to see Counselor Lee in person. The next day. At the door of the mysterious building within the first ring of Beijing, a black Audi A6 slowly stopped. After the door opened, a middle-aged man got out first, followed by a college student with a slightly immature face. Yongchang, when you meet Counselor Lee, don't talk nonsense. Be serious, understand? Han Kaiming's eyes showed some trepidation. As the guarantor of Liu Yongchang, if something really went wrong, he probably wouldn't be able to get out. Lu Yongchang nodded gently and didn't speak. Seeing this, Han Kaiming's eyes showed a little smile. I didn't expect you to get nervous sometimes. I've never seen you like this in front of me. Han Kaiming's teasing voice brought Lu Yongchang back to his senses. A bit of surprise flashed in his eyes. Nervous? He wasn't nervous just now. He was just thinking about how to make Counselor Lee pay attention to the development of aerospace technology. However, since Minister Han said so, he just silently agreed to this sentence. You can't refute him at this time, right? As a former chief scientist, his emotional intelligence is not that low. Don't worry, Counselor Lee is easy to talk to. Seeing that Lu Yongchang remained silent, Minister Han's eyes smiled even more, and he reached out and patted him on the shoulder gently. Let's go. Don't let Counselor Lee wait anxiously. Knock, knock, knock. The rhythmic knocking sounded in the quiet corridor. Come in. The voice of an old man came from inside the door. The heavy wooden door slowly opened, and the familiar and simple office appeared in front of Lu Yongchang. A little nostalgia flashed in his eyes. In the last life, he was a frequent visitor to this office. Lu Yongchang, right? The first time he saw Lu Yongchang, a smile appeared on the old man's face, and then he slowly got up from the chair and walked in front of him. Counselor Lee looked up and down at Lu Yongchang and praised him repeatedly. Not bad, not bad. A handsome man. He reached out and patted Lu Yongchang on the shoulder on behalf of the Xia Kingdom. Thank you. As he spoke, Counselor Lee actually bent down towards Lu Yongchang. Counselor Lee, seeing this, Han Kaiming on the side showed a bit of anxiety in his eyes and said repeatedly, Counselor Lee, absolutely not. Lu Yongchang also reacted immediately and was about to help Counselor Lee up, but was firmly nailed to the spot by Counselor Lee's left hand and had to accept the blow abruptly. Member Lee, you are. Lu Yongchang smiled bitterly. I just did what a scientific researcher should do. Member Lee stood up and was moved by what he said. What should be done? Good. A few days ago, I asked Minister Han what he thought of you. Originally, I thought Minister Han was biased towards you, but now it seems that Minister Han didn't tell the truth. Member Lee smiled and glanced at Han Kaiming, who was standing aside with a smirk on his face, and spoke again to affirm. You kid. Good. Very good. If all the young people in my Xia country are like you, there is no need to worry about Xia country not rising. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 20 to Counselor Lee and -039's suspicion. Faced with Counselor Lee's affirmation, Lu Yongchang showed a faint smile on his face. Looking at Lu Yongchang's slightly calm expression, Counselor Lee showed a bit of surprise in his eyes. In his impression, almost no one can maintain such a calm attitude under his praise. Counselor Lee pondered for a moment and slowly said, Yongchang, what do you think of the future direction of technology development in Xiaguo? As soon as the voice fell, Han Kaiming's eyes showed a bit of excitement. Here it comes. From Counselor Lee's previous attitude, he can be sure that, as long as Lu Yongchang answers this question in a proper manner, the important task of the new generation leader will inevitably fall on him. Lu Yongchang's eyes moved slightly. Like Han Kaiming, he also noticed the meaning behind Counselor Lee's words before entering the office. Han Kaiming's words flashed through his mind. Although he knew the hidden meaning in Han Kaiming's words, he could not answer this question in a proper manner. The scene of the helium flash in the sun was still flashing in his mind. How dare he slow down? Lu Yongchang took a deep breath and said slowly, Member Lee, I think Xiaguo should focus on the universe. Han Kaiming was slightly stunned, and then a bit of anxiety flashed in his eyes. This kid, he was clearly told not to talk nonsense. Lu Yongchang continued to say, at present, we have successfully ignited the spark of nuclear fusion. It can be said that Xiaguo is only half a step away from completely mastering controlled nuclear fusion. Member Lee, as a scientific researcher and a scholar, I have the obligation to remind you that controlled nuclear fusion technology is very important and is related to the country's destiny. Xiago is now at the turning point of the times. The door to the new world is in front of us. Whether to push it open or retreat, everything depends on our next move. Counselor Lee frowned slightly and looked at LV Yongchang, who was talking in front of him thoughtfully. Yongchang, you, Han, chiming on the side, couldn't hold his temper anymore and shouted at LV Yongchang in a low voice, trying to interrupt him. Member Lee suddenly raised his left hand and made a gesture to interrupt Han Kaiming's action. He looked at Han Kaiming meaningfully and slowly said, "Let him finish." Then, Counselor Lee turned his head to look at LV Yongchang again and said meaningfully, "You mean Xiago needs to develop controlled nuclear fusion as soon as possible?" LV Yongchang nodded gently. "Not only that, Xiago needs to look beyond the Earth. Beyond the Earth. That's right." LV Yongchang's eyes were firm, and he didn't care about the doubts in the eyes of Counselor Lee and Han Kaiming, and continued, "The moon, Mars, or outside the solar system. Ahem. Yongchang." Han Kaiming coughed and reminded, "It's a bit far-fetched, member." Lee shook his head slowly, with a smile in his eyes. "It doesn't matter. Young people, it's good to have some dreams." Hearing Counselor Lee's comments, Han Kaiming breathed a sigh of relief. He secretly glared at LV Yongchang. This brat, he really dares to say anything in front of Counselor Lee. When I get back, I must teach him a lesson. As for LV Yongchang, a trace of regret flashed in his eyes. Sure enough, it's too early to say these things now. When the sun starts to age a year later, he can officially put his plan on the table. And now, what he needs to do is to accumulate all kinds of necessary technologies for the Starry Sea plan. A year later, Counselor Lee was silent for a moment and then spoke again. "Yongchang, don't worry, the controlled nuclear fusion project will be the focus of Xia's development in the next few years. Now, what you need to do is to perfect the controlled nuclear fusion technology in the laboratory as much as possible. When the time is right, Xia will naturally build a controlled nuclear fusion demonstration reactor." LV Yongchang nodded silently. "Okay, you go out first. Minister Han and I still have something to say." As soon as the office door was closed, Han Kaiming said anxiously, "Councilman Lee, this kid Lu Yongchang is just too young. Okay. Councilman Lee's face was full of smiles. "I know what you mean. Of course I know that this kid Lu Yongchang is a talented person. I kept you here for another thing." As he said, Councilman Lee handed a document in his hand to Han Kaiming. Han Kaiming breathed a sigh of relief and reached out to take the document handed over by Councilman Lee. The moment he saw the document, Han Kaiming frowned tightly. "This is the investigation result of the Second Security Bureau of Xia State," Member Lee said lightly. Han Kaiming's pupils shrank suddenly, and his hands holding the documents trembled slightly. It turned out to be the intelligence of Xia country's Security Bureau 2. This is an intelligence department comparable to the US Central Intelligence Agency, Y country's Military Intelligence Bureau 5 in the Soviet KGB. Member Lee's eyes were deep, and he whispered, "According to the investigation, although LV Yongchang had excellent grades in the past, he did not seem to show any outstanding qualities." Han Kaiming swallowed slightly. "You mean LV Yongchang has a problem, member?" Lee shook his head slowly. "There is no problem. I have also read the information of his parents, and they are very clean. Otherwise, he would not be able to enter this office, member." Lee's tone was very calm. But a chill rose behind Han Kaiming. He hurriedly asked, "What do you mean, member?" Lee did not reply immediately, but pressed a button next to his desk. "Is the result out?" Member Lee said in a light tone. The next moment, a steady male voice came from the office. From entering the office to leaving, a total of 11 minutes and 25 seconds. During this period, LV Yongchang's heartbeat fluctuated twice, accompanied by a series of conditions such as pupil contraction. When the first time was in the process of responding to your questions, and the second time was before leaving the office. Member Lee nodded thoughtfully and asked again, "What does the psychological assessment say?" According to the assessment, LV Yongchang should not have any bad intentions, and everything he said should be the truth from the heart. But He concealed something, member. Lee nodded slowly. Point, that's right. Point, ever since he met LV Yongchang, he had this feeling in his heart. Point, it seemed that there was a huge secret hidden in LV Yongchang's heart. Point, Han Kaiming swallowed slightly and asked in a low voice, Councilman Lee, how about removing LV Yongchang's title of Chief Engineer of Controlled Nuclear Fusion first? Councilman Lee's mouth corners slightly raised, and a meaningful smile appeared on his wrinkled face. No. Hurry. It's not a problem to have secrets. Everyone has secrets, including me and you, as he said. Councilman Lee's eyes briefly stayed on Han Kaiming's face. Point, Han Kaiming's heart skipped a beat. Point, after a pause, Councilman Lee continued to speak. I just need to know that he has no bad intentions towards Xiaguo. What's more, he has made such a great contribution to controlled nuclear fusion. Xiaguo is definitely not a country that will abandon its employees after they have done their work. Han Kaiming looked at Councillor Lee in confusion. Then, Councillor Lee pondered for a moment and said slowly, continue to let him serve as chief engineer. In addition, start the second experiment as soon as possible. I hope that within a year, the light of fusion can shine on the land of Xiaguo. Chapter 23. Public opinion gradually rises. The next day, point, before anyone noticed, a piece of news quietly appeared on the front page of the newspaper. Xiaguo's controllable nuclear fusion experimental reactor plan is officially launched today. Of course, there is no surprise that this news has also appeared on the hot search list for scarves for a time. It attracted countless comments from netizens. This is the official launch of the controllable nuclear fusion experimental reactor plan. I remember, didn't I just successfully ignite it 2 days ago? Isn't the progress too fast? Can someone please explain to me, what does this news mean? Here comes the explanation. Successful ignition can only mean that Xiaguo can ignite nuclear fusion in a controllable nuclear fusion device. It is still far away from truly mastering controllable nuclear fusion. However, the current experimental reactor is where the research really begins. Controlled nuclear fusion, I see. But this is fast enough. I hope Xiaguo can give ITER a big help and be the first to develop controllable nuclear fusion. I think Zuan, I heard people say that the controllable nuclear fusion technology at ITER is almost mature. Everyone should know that it is time to kick out the Xia kingdom. At the same time, an article appeared on something. It's all in vain. It is impossible for a stellarator to achieve controllable nuclear fusion. As time went by, the impact of this article gradually began to grow. Reprint, like, share. The power of the internet is extremely huge. In just over 10 hours, this article reached the top of the list of trending searches for scarves. After returning from Congressman Lu Yongchang turned around and entered the nuclear physics laboratory of Sandaokao University without taking any rest. He needs to start the second controlled nuclear fusion experiment as soon as possible. Only by truly achieving long-term controllable nuclear fusion in a stellarator can he propose to Congressman Lee the construction of a fusion demonstration reactor. What the hell is written here? I'm so angry. Just as Lu Yongchang was leaning on his desk studying various data collected from the first ignition, the door of the office was pushed open, and Fang Zhu's angry voice came from the door. Seeing Fang Zhu's face turn red, Lu Yongchang was stunned and immediately put down the pen in his hand and asked, "What's going on? Which researcher got the data wrong again?" Hearing Lu Yongchang's question, Fang Zhu shook his head repeatedly, then took out his mobile phone from his pocket, unlocked the screen, and placed it in front of Lu Yongchang. "Look at what is being said on the internet. It really pisses me off. Any clown can come out and say a few words." There was some confusion in Lu Yongchang's eyes, and he looked at the phone screen on the table with curiosity. Seeing the somewhat familiar interface, he instantly became happy. "Hey, academician Fang, you are still shopping somewhere?" Fang Zhu glanced at Lu Yongchang angrily. "What the hell? I don't shop for that stuff. This is a link sent to me by a friend of mine." Lu Yongchang smiled and shook his head, reaching out to drag the screen. "It's all in vain. It is impossible for a stellarator to achieve controllable nuclear fusion." The moment he saw the title, He raised his eyebrows slightly, and the look on his face became more serious. The article is not very long, only a few hundred words. However, the content is a bit dazzling. Point in the first half of the article, the difference between the stellarator and the tokamak device is very objectively described, and it is emphasized that the stellarator is a device that has been eliminated by Western countries. Seeing this, Yongchang raised his head and looked at Fang Zhu with a surprised look on his face. What's going on? Isn't it well written? These are indeed facts. Fang Zhu sighed deeply. Keep reading. Yongchang glanced at Fang Zhu suspiciously, then dragged the screen to look down again. Gradually, he sensed a problem. Just looking at the first half, this article is a popular science article. But in the second half, its butt is a little crooked. First of all, the article writes that ITER's tokamak device can sustain fusion reactions for up to 26 minutes, thereby highlighting the flaws of the stellarator. After all, in the first ignition experiment, the stellarator only carried out the fusion reaction for about 2 minutes. Secondly, the article directly states the scientific research funding that Sandokan University received for this stellarator project, a full $1 billion. At the end of the article, the author criticized the Sandokan University nuclear physics laboratory in extremely fierce terms, making money, enjoying great success, and wasting Zaya's public resources. Sandokan University and the nuclear physics laboratory are simply said to be worthless. Did you see it? I don't know who the author is. If you want me to know, I have two. The sound of Fang Zhu gritting his teeth came from the side. Different from Fang Zhu's reaction, Yongchang closed the webpage lightly and returned the phone to Fang Zhu. Seeing Yongchang's reaction, Fang Zhu's emotions became a little incoherent. He reached out and took his cell phone with a confused look on his face. Yongchang, aren't you angry? In his opinion, this article is basically equivalent to pointing their noses and yelling. As an academician of the Academy of Sciences, Fang Zhu asked himself. He still couldn't swallow this breath when he thought about it. As the chief engineer of the controllable nuclear fusion project, Yongchang would only be angrier. But the fact slapped Fang Zhu in the face. Yongchang chuckled and shook his head slowly. It's just some confusing ideas published by an internet celebrity. There's no need to get angry. Why do we have to put down our work and go online to write an article to refute it? Fang Zhu was a little speechless for a moment. While looking down at the data on the table, Yongchang said lightly, we are scientists. We don't need to care about these temporary honors and disgraces. I believe that as long as we successfully run controlled nuclear fusion on the stellarator, these so-called rumors will naturally disappear. Don't forget what controlled nuclear fusion means to Xiago. After speaking, Yongchang focused all his attention on the information in front of him. As for Fang Zhu, he was stunned with a complicated expression. Unexpectedly, he has lived for more than 40 years, and no young man in his early 20s has seen it through. Controlled nuclear fusion is not a dispute over personal honor and disgrace. This is a dispute over national destiny that has not happened in a century. Although Yongchang let it go, Jiang Yangxing, the dean of the School of Nuclear Physics at Sandokan University, could not let it go. After all, this was a slander against Sandokan University. He immediately reported the whole thing to Minister Han Kaiming. It's okay, I got it. I'll have someone investigate this matter. Han Kaiming's solemn voice came out from the microphone. Chapter 24. The second nuclear fusion experiment begins. Xiago, Beijing. In a small villa. A man wearing high-end brand name clothes and a pair of plain glasses on his nose was staring at the computer screen in front of him. The screen on the computer screen was an author's backstage. On the homepage of the author's backstage, an article received countless likes and comments. The camera zoomed in, and the title of the article gradually became clear. It was the article that criticized Sandokan University on a certain website. Looking at the increasing number of likes and comments, a sneer appeared on the corner of the man's mouth. This article should bring him a lot of income. While thinking, he pressed F5 on the keyboard. The webpage refreshed. The article that should have appeared on the homepage turned gray. What's going on? The man stood up from his chair with a bang His face uncertain. A bad guess slowly emerged in his mind. He moved the mouse, moved the cursor to the grey article title, and gently clicked the left button of the mouse. Hello, Deng Haochu. Your article is suspected of, in short, it was 404. Looking at the line of crimson Chinese characters in front of him, Deng Haochu's face changed suddenly. Damn it. He quickly dragged the mouse and switched the web page to the income interface. A big zero came into his eyes. Bang. Deng Haochu raised his hand and slapped the computer desk in front of him, shaking the computer screen. Damn. Sandao Cal University. Deng Haochu knew that this kind of thing could only be done by people from Sandao Cal University. This matter is not over. A cold light flashed in Deng Haochu's eyes, thinking of the tens of millions of income that disappeared out of thin air. Deng Haochu's face flashed a trace of pain. A week later, as this article was deleted and banned by the entire network, the bad public opinion it caused gradually disappeared. At this time, Sandao Cal University once again entered a state of martial law. The reason is very simple. The second controlled nuclear fusion experiment will be launched in the nuclear physics laboratory of Sandao Cal University, in the library of Sandao Cal University. Su Yutang frowned and raised her head from the exercise book in front of her, subconsciously looking at the seat next to her as usual. It was empty. She closed her eyes slightly and sighed deeply. Since she met Lu Yongchang last time, she has been like a demon, coming to the library at the same time every day, trying to encounter again. However, after more than 10 days of continuous setbacks, her slightly restless heart gradually calmed down. Perhaps that graduate student only came to the library occasionally. Yutang, just as Su Yutang was lost in thought, a crisp shout came from the side. Su Yutang trembled slightly and looked back suddenly. Seeing the person coming, her tense body relaxed a little. Chen Yun? Why are you here, Chen? Yun glanced at Su Yutang unhappily and said loudly, why can't I come yet? I don't know what's wrong with you. You sit in a small corner of the library every day. Could it be that you are waiting for someone? Su Yutang's eyes flashed with panic after her secret was exposed. You don't talk nonsense. This is the library. Keep your voice down, Chen. Yun glanced at Su Yutang again. Keep your voice down. Do you want to see if there is anyone around? Su Yutang was slightly stunned and hurriedly stood up and looked around. The huge library was empty. What's going on, Chen? Yun sighed deeply, with a helpless look in her eyes. My eldest lady, didn't you read the school announcement yesterday? Su Yutang shook her head blankly. Chen Yun stepped forward and pulled Su Yutang's right hand. Come on, come back to the dormitory with me. The school issued a notice last night requiring all students not to leave the dormitory unless necessary. I really don't know how you got out today. If I didn't know you would come to the library every day, I wouldn't know where to find you. Su Yutang's eyes became more and more confused. Why, Chen? Yun dragged Su Yutang towards the dormitory. Why? Are you pretending to be stupid, or do you really not know? Our school's nuclear physics laboratory will conduct the second controlled nuclear fusion experiment today, in the nuclear physics laboratory. LV Yongchang looked solemnly at the stellarator device in front of him, which looked like a messy ball of wool. Get ready, LV. Yongchang didn't say much nonsense and directly spoke to Fang Zhu on the side. Fang Zhu nodded lightly, turned his head, and gave orders to the researcher beside him. It was a familiar process again. After the switch was turned on, a humming sound was heard, and extremely powerful current passed through the superconducting coil, forming a closed, twisted ring-shaped magnetic cage in the inner cavity of the stellarator. During the time when the heating device began to preheat, Fang Zhu asked LV Yongchang with a nervous look on his face. Yongchang, how long do you think the controlled nuclear fusion can be maintained in this experiment? Hearing this question, LV Yongchang glanced at Fang Zhu with a strange expression. What do you mean by how long it can be extended? In LV Yongchang's opinion, the basic structure of the stellarator at this time is not much different from the large fusion reactors of later generations, except that it is not connected to the generator. At least, all the necessary parts are already there. Brother Zhu, I think this question depends on how long you want to maintain it. Fang Zhu's pupils shrank suddenly. What does this mean? Before he had time to think about it, the researcher next to him shouted loudly, Professor LV, the preheating work is completed. Without time to explain in detail to Fang Zhu, LV Yongchang directly said in a deep voice, inject deuterium and tritium gas, prepare to ignite. When the deuterium and tritium gas turned into high temperature plasma in the inner cavity of the stellarator, a laser instantly irradiated the surface of the deuterium and tritium plasma. In just a few seconds, the fusion fire was ignited again. A large number of neutrons were detected. The nuclear fusion reaction occurred normally. Reports came one after another. LV Yongchang looked a little solemn. Pay close attention to the remaining amount of deuterium and tritium. If it is insufficient, add it immediately. Unlike the last experiment, LV Yongchang's goal this time is to maintain controlled nuclear fusion for a long time. Therefore, it must not be like the last experiment, where the fuel is burned out after a while of the fusion reaction. How is the heat dissipation? LV Yongchang asked in a deep voice. The researcher responsible for monitoring the temperature immediately responded, the heat dissipation system is in good working condition. The surface temperature of the stellarator is 25 degrees Celsius. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 27 minutes. When Fang Zhu saw that the nuclear fusion reaction lasted longer than ITER's record of 26 minutes, his face was full of excitement and anxiety. The excitement was naturally that they had set a new record. The anxiety was because he thought of the 30-minute threshold of the tokamak device that LV Yongchang had mentioned before. Time passed by minute. The 30-minute threshold passed with LV Yongchang's ordinary expression. He looked up at the time, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. 35 minutes, almost done, get ready to stop. Under the orderly operation of a group of researchers, the heating system slowly stopped, and the current passing through the superconducting coil gradually weakened. Finally, the flame of nuclear fusion slowly extinguished in the stellarator. Chapter 25, Exposing the Inside Story. Beijing. In an extremely inconspicuous bungalow. Deng Haochu sat on a slightly worn out sofa with a gloomy face. This is a studio for a small program. The program is very small and can only be seen on some extremely unpopular channels, but it is his only means of counterattack at present. Snap. The lights in the studio came on. Deng Haochu looked around, and his mouth twitched twice. To be honest, this studio is indeed a bit shabby. Except for a green screen behind, there are only two slightly worn out sofas. In front of it is a camera. Around, there are a group of extras sitting on small benches as the audience. Looking at the expressionless faces of those extras, Deng Haochu sighed deeply. The only thing that made him a little relieved was that this beautiful host was still pleasing to the eye. Mr. Deng, the show is about to start. Our show is live, so there are some things you need to pay attention to. The female host smiled sweetly and said softly to Deng Haochu. Deng Haochu nodded repeatedly, but there was a hint of contempt in his eyes. Such a studio, live broadcast. What a joke. Which TV station can let such a show be broadcast live? The host naturally saw the contempt in Deng Haochu's eyes. A hint of displeasure flashed in her eyes. Isn't he just a big V on a certain website? Being able to be on this show is already a face-saving thing for you. You even dislike the program team, TSK. The host sneered in her heart. She wanted to see what shocking words this so-called Big V could say later. As she thought so in her heart, the smile on her face became sweeter. The next moment, she turned to look at the camera in front of her. When the red light on the camera came on, she said in a brisk and clear tone, "Hello, everyone. I am the host Yi. The theme of this program is the recently popular controlled nuclear fusion project. The program team specially invited an expert in the field of nuclear fusion, Mr. Deng Haochu. Mr. Deng, can you tell us about the knowledge in the field of controlled nuclear fusion?" As she said, the female host Yi turned her head to look at Deng Haochu. Maybe because it was the first time on a TV show, Deng Haochu's face was a little stiff, and he greeted the camera very unnaturally. "Hello, everyone. I'm Deng Haochu. A few days ago, Xiaogo announced its withdrawal from the ITER project. This news surprised me. Then, what is the ITER project?" The host Yi asked appropriately. Deng Haochu hurriedly explained the content of the ITER plan, and then continued, I estimate that withdrawing from the ITER plan will have a great impact on Xiaoguo's controlled nuclear fusion project. If nothing unexpected happens, we will fall behind the Western powers again. The host Yi looked at Deng Haochu in surprise, but, not long ago, Sandaokou University announced the news of the first successful ignition of the controlled nuclear fusion project. How do you explain this? A gleam of light flashed in Deng Haochu's eyes. Here it comes. This is the question he wants to hear. Deng Haochu's mouth twitched, and a sneer appeared on his somewhat stiff face. As a professional who has been studying controlled nuclear fusion, I can tell you this very clearly. The news that Sandaokou University successfully ignited nuclear fusion contains a lot of water. First of all, the controlled nuclear fusion device used by Sandaokou University is a stellarator device eliminated by country D. This device has now been abandoned by major Western countries. Secondly, the controlled nuclear fusion of Sandaokou University can only last for 2 minutes. The host nodded thoughtfully. You mean, 2 minutes of controlled nuclear fusion? What effect can this have? Deng Haochu's eyes flashed with some sarcasm. Even if Ultraman fights the little monster, it will take 3 minutes, right? As soon as the voice fell, there was a burst of laughter from the surrounding audience. Seeing that the surrounding extras were no longer lifeless, Deng Haochu couldn't help but be refreshed. I can tell you another piece of data. ITER's controlled nuclear fusion has been maintained for 26 minutes. The gap between the two can be said to be a world of difference. The host Yi interrupted Deng Haochu again. Then according to what you said, Mr. Deng, Sandaokou University's controlled nuclear fusion maintenance time will definitely not exceed the record currently held by ITER, right? Deng Haochu, who was interrupted repeatedly, glanced at the host with some dissatisfaction. No wonder he is still the host of a small program. Considering that he is still recording the program, Deng Haochu can only suppress his depression. That's right. If I remember correctly, Sandaokou University will conduct the second controlled nuclear fusion experiment today. If nothing unexpected happens in this experiment, they will taste the bitterness of the stellarator device. Deng Haochu looked at the host meaningfully and said, Oh, Mr. Deng, do you mean, is there a fatal flaw in the design of the stellarator? Hearing the host's question, Deng Haochu smiled meaningfully and nodded. Of course, controlled nuclear fusion requires extremely high temperatures. The temperature of the plasma in the fusion reactor is at least hundreds of millions of degrees Celsius. The biggest problem with the stellarator is its complex structure. Once there is any error, the plasma of hundreds of millions of degrees will directly touch the inner cavity of the stellarator. TSK. This scene is beautiful just to think about. As he spoke, Deng Haochu's expression gradually became more unbridled. I can also tell you a secret. Sandaokou University received 1 billion yuan in research funds from the Xia State Parliament with this shabby stellarator device. In my opinion, this is simply nonsense. How can this be called scientific research? This is simply a money-making scam. Wow. In just a moment, there was a burst of discussion in the audience. Looking at the eager eyes of the audience around him, Deng Haochu felt extremely satisfied, and the expression on the face of the host on the side became a little weird. Ahem. Mr. Deng, our program is live. Please be careful with your words. Deng Haochu seemed to be in high spirits, completely ignoring the host's reminder, and continued to speak loudly. What's wrong with the live broadcast? Some time ago, I exposed the dark side of Sandaokou University on a certain website, but the post was blocked. From this, we can see how many shameful things Sandaokou University has done secretly. Today, I will expose Sandaokou University in front of the audience. Host Yi looked at Deng Haochu, who was like a madman in front of her, and didn't know what to do for a while. After all, she was just a small host, and faced with such an emergency, she had no idea how to deal with it. Just when the stage was in chaos, a staff member suddenly ran up to the stage, and leaned over to whisper a few words in the ear of host Yi. What? Host Yi looked at the staff in front of her with a shocked face. What you said, is it true? Seeing The staff nodded. Yi subconsciously glanced at Deng Haochu beside her, and a bit of determination flashed in her eyes. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.